do you agree that by and large, anti-Semitism is a state of mind? It's a mindful state.
Mostly. I would probably draw a caveat in the sense
It's
that
such a
maybe
stupid. It's like so funny to say it. It's like I'm in that anti-Semitism state of mind. You know?
I'm in my. It's a lifestyle, man. It's.
Where's like the background?
The person who thinks in their life, let's say, they love the Jews in their life. They're married to a Jew, but they really, really hate Jews in Israel. You wouldn't call that person anti-Semitic, would you?
Why are you rage baiting me? Like, there were black slave people that, like, they're slaves and had, like, a fetish and everything for them, too. When they're talking about Jews, they have, like, this cartoonishly retarded definition of racism that starts from, like, you have an evil in your heart, and then you hate the other race because
no one wants to be, like, racist or anti-Semitic. They just don't want to. But they want to do these things, so they have to, like, create a new definition.
Yeah, it's just so... Oh, God.
You said you want to call me. Oh, yeah, okay. Hello.
Test. How you doing, man? Can you hear me?
You're insanely quiet. Wait, maybe did I turn you down last time we spoke? No.
Maybe.
You're at 100 now.
Okay, well listen, I have some Japanese like neighbors right now, and so I don't want to be that loud.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that cool?
I'll double your volume. It's okay.
Sick. I'm drinking a beer. I hope it's all right with you.
I'll make an exception. Okay.
Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Holy shit. This is a
How long is he going to be in Japan? I don't understand, man.
huge problem. Just 1 second. You could say I kind of did. You could sort of say that.
You didn't
You
get
might
on
be
your
correct
equipment,
about
did you?
I got it on everywhere. All my equipment, man. I gotta say it's everywhere. But
No.
you know, I'm dealing with it. Anyway, you want to talk about Jews?
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Jesus.
I think I'm good. All right, what's up?
So, yeah, so
No
I listened to
Jews,
your
no
conversation
news.
with Conduit, and I got a little bit of whiplash from it.
Sure.
Here,
Pisco said, I believe, Dan, to quote him, he said something along the lines of, it's not anti-Semitic to do Holocaust denialism.
That sounds retarded.
He said something along those lines.
my own words.
How could you possibly say that? What would it be otherwise?
He said it's not necessarily anti-Semitic to be a Holocaust denialist, or something along those lines.
What would be the other way to look at it if it's not anti-Semitism? Why else would you be denying something that there's universal consensus around?
Sure.
He brought up that thing, hating Jews. No, anti-Semitism is hating Jews more than is absolutely necessary. I was like, oh no, that's what I say.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't say that, but I don't think I ever said that you should go out into the world and use that as a concrete definition. It's more of a quip. But
I didn't know it came from you.
I didn't come up with it myself. It's like a joke from some fucking. I think it's like a rabbi or some poet or something. I don't know. It's like obviously it's a joke from a Jewish person because it's like tongue in cheek. But I was actually curious. What do you think that quote means, or like, as a quip?
My guess is it's something like that disproportionate critique of someone who is Jewish is an indication of anti-Semitism. But again, maybe it's a quip. It's kind of like there's a lot of like I don't know, hatred, or like, I don't know, it's like what's it when you like you rag on yourself, whatever that term is?
Self-deprecating.
Self-deprecating humor among the Jewish community and stuff like that. So I don't really know what it means. To be honest with you, maybe it's like just indication that like Jews themselves are highly critical of Jews.
I think that's maybe like where the joke is probably like the fact that it's self-deprecating. But I think the concept that it's speaking to, and the thing that I seem to notice quite a bit, is that, and it's probably the case with other forms of bigotry as well, is the idea that like if someone from X ethnic group does something bad, you can rag on them, you can hate on them, you can criticize them, whatever. But there comes a point where someone can be taking a particular issue, even an issue that like everyone is on the same side of, but they are clearly taking it to a place that is not really concerned with the issue itself. So I don't know. We've had this discussion with Drew Pavlov actually about grooming gangs in the UK, right?
That's like a fever dream, but I recall us having a conversation like that. Yeah.
And obviously, like everyone, so no one disagrees that the grooming gangs are real. We know who they were, and no one disagrees that they were allowed to get away with their crimes for a very long time. No, I don't think.
I'm a groomer
behind this operation.
Hello, Dan. I am talking to you and only you right now. Go make a cocktail and drink it in the middle of the day. You have worked hard on buying that wrench and deserve to get day drunk.
Yeah, maybe next time. A little early, you know? A little early.
Boo.
Them. But obviously there's a difference between someone who acknowledges like who those guys were and what they did and everything is very different from someone who like makes that something like front and center, like an obsession in their politics, right? Like someone who talks about it like all day, every day. They just seem strangely uninterested when the same crimes are being committed by white people. And then they don't have to exaggerate, but often they do start to exaggerate as well, or they start to inflate numbers and things like that. And usually, even without the exaggerations, we can quite safely infer that people who put such a small subset of sexual abuse crimes in the UK to like front and center of their politics and have that level of obsession with it are doing so out of bigotry, or are at least doing it in a bigoted way.
Is Loaderbox
Yeah, so I guess
Jewish?
what you're trying to say is that there are certain trends or patterns that constitute circumstantial evidence for
If he is, W. If he's
dislike or
not, then
prejudice
L.
against Jews, right? That
He's
doesn't change what
Lebanese.
anti-Semitism is, as I understand it. I think all you're saying is there are some things that we would take as circumstantial evidence of discriminatory belief. And I think that the problem that we were having in that conversation is one of getting the full scope of what anti-Semitism is, not what would constitute evidence of anti-Semitism. Hope that distinction is clear.
Yeah. What do you think anti-Semitism is?
I take anti-Semitism to be dislike, prejudice, or hatred on the basis of someone's Judaism or someone because they're Jewish, in other words.
Yeah. So like either the religion or the ethnicity, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess when we're defining other forms of bigotry, would there be anything like there was a bit of a dispute, I guess, about how exceptional anti-Semitism is compared to other bigotries. Is there anything that you would comment there on that? Like, do you agree with that, or do you have or what was your opinion there?
I view it as tangential to what it is. I mean, it could be true, it couldn't be, and it could not be true, and it wouldn't change my understanding of what it is.
Could
I
be
just
true,
understand
could not be
anti-Semitism to
true.
be hatred, dislike, prejudice, etc.
Who knows?
Of someone on the basis of them being Jewish. That's what I understand it to be. And
Did I come out yet? Yeah, I'm gay.
it could be true that there's some exceptional aspects of anti-Semitism, and I think that there are, if you want to know my opinion. But there's also exceptional, distinct histories related to other forms of prejudice, of anti-Black bigotry, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm not really in the game of like comparing the amount of badness of a given prejudice. I think they're all fairly bad, but I'm happy to recognize that there are distinct and unique aspects of anti-Semitism, as I suspect there are for a lot of different bigotries.
Okay.
And I think that do you agree that that's like a notion of anti-Semitism that's
Dude, any Pisco conversation, it's honestly exhausting because you have to be the most locked in human being in the world.
miles with you that you not that you agree with it, but that like makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think I was going to add like the exceptional part to me is not so much the weight of it, is more that.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
It's more the.
For any piece.
What do you mean locked in? What does locked in mean?
Well, like, so does that include
Like
when you say
prescriptively?
conversation? Does that mean that like every single like text message as well, or just the spoken voice, or?
What about debates? Does that mean you have to be locked in for debates? What if you're just listening to him? Is that a conversation? Because you're talking to him technically? Because you might watch the clip?
Every time you act like.
Oh, he didn't even do it right.
Sense that like I don't think most other bigotries have this thing where you can denigrate a group just as much as you elevate them. So I think with like anti-Black racism or like racism against Pakistanis or whatever else, or even gays and like usually it's to do with them being something lower than what the in-group is, like either dumber or more degenerate or dirtier or something like that. Whereas with Jews, it seems to be like people can hold that opinion of Jews plenty, but they also simultaneously see Jews as like exceptionally intelligent, exceptionally powerful, exceptionally in control of the way things are going in the world. Like,
Hell yeah,
like
they
the conspiracism,
do.
I think, overlaps a lot with anti-Semitism compared to other religions or other bigotries.
It reminds me a little bit that dynamic that you're calling out, again, not to say anything other than on the specific point that you're raising. I see a comparison to like what happened in Rwanda, right, with the Hutus and the Tutsis, and there's a kind of minority which is seen as having like sort of far too outsized influence or power. That's all fine with me. I think that would sort of influence what we would take to be evidence of that prejudice, but it wouldn't change our notion of what the concept of anti-Semitism in fact is. In other words, everything we're saying about like the tendencies of people to hide power levels, this like disproportionate focus, that to me is all like just inputs where we might weigh it differently perhaps, but it's all circumstantial evidence of a state of mind. And I want to know if you agree with me. Do you agree that by and large anti-Semitism is a state of mind? It's a mindful state.
Mostly. I would probably draw a caveat in the sense
It's
that
such a
maybe
stupid. It's like so funny to say it. It's like I'm in that anti-Semitism state of mind. You know?
I'm in my. It's a lifestyle, man. It's
Where's like the background? Where's the background music for this? It's like kind of a chill, you know, like an ambient, you know, almost like to a rap song beat. You know what I'm talking about? You know. Yeah, there's
I
something
wish I
good there.
did. I don't know what you're saying, man.
Okay.
I'm not even trying to snark you. Can you explain better?
No.
Sorry.
we'll get into this in a minute.
Sorry.
I think like there is a way that people can not necessarily have the state of mind, but they can be so reckless with regards to like the stuff that the things that they're doing or the information that they're putting out or the things that they're saying or believing, that it's a very predictable outcome of what they do, and they're doing it with a particular like reckless disregard for whether or not like what they're saying is truthful or holds merit or whether it's proportionate or that kind of thing. So an example would
Well, I
be
want to
like,
push on that a little bit. Yeah. So sorry. Go ahead. You can finish. My bad.
so if I like, I think when I was like 13, some older charismatic dude in World of Warcraft convinced me that the Holocaust numbers don't add up, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I suppose that makes
I
sense.
thought this was about to go
Anything
someplace
push
very
backwards.
different.
Mhm.
I thought it was
I
like
don't think
when
I
I was
felt
13,
I had any state
an
of
older
mind
man
against.
and World of Warcraft convinced me to show my penis, but it didn't go there.
No,
it
it did
was that
not.
the Holocaust did not happen.
I can't believe that an older man could convince him of that.
You know, older men are very convincing. What do you want to say?
An older man convinced me to kiss him once. That was crazy.
I believe it was actually the younger man's idea in a case that I'm thinking about. I'm not sure what you're thinking about, but I'm, you know, again, I'm thinking of a specific case that I'm familiar with.
Which case are you talking about?
I'm just talking about a case where I'm aware of, you know, a man that was manipulated by a younger man.
Really?
And yes.
Jews
And I
and
really
was,
don't
like,
think
believing
that there was
stuff. I think
much
if I went-
remorse, is what I would say.
From the
I
older
don't think
man.
there was from the younger man.
Like the older man liked it.
No, the older man felt that it was his duty to. I won that, by the way. If you go, you were sloppy as fuck, and I was ready to take the bar.
it would
telling
be
you.
much harder for me to excuse that behavior because I don't think I would only be able to do so if I had a very reckless disregard for
I'm gonna
the impact
touch
of what I
your
was
nut, Dave.
saying
I'll link
and
it.
believing,
I'll
or
link
the
it. Let me get
truthfulness
the
of what I was
link.
saying or believing.
Yeah. So like, so sort of just what you're saying, I think we would apply different, weight to evidence as relates someone on a forum when they're 13 and like a fully grown adult who presumably you're being exposed to all manner of anti-Semitism, I'm sure, and these tropes, and you're dealing with a lot of these international issues where, anti-Semitism and related charges loom large, right? And so I certainly think that everything must be considered in its context and the totality of circumstances when we're running this analysis. But again, I think that that's all just getting to what we take to be different culpable states of mind, right? And I don't think it's changing fundamentally what it is we're measuring. And the example I want to push on that is like, let's say that you take an action that you know will increase anti-Semitism. You know it for a fact. And the example I used that unfortunately was never answered in the conversation with Conduit is suppose that someone is in good faith without harboring either a conscious or unconscious bias and of Jews or of someone who loves Jews, releases an expose that they know will have the practical effect on, let's say, some action that Israel has conducted, leave it at that. They know this will increase anti-Semitism. That will be the effect of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You would never call that person anti-Semitic on that basis, merely because they know to a certainty that their action is going to increase anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, would you?
No, I wouldn't. No. I would maybe ask one question: is does it matter? One, how truthful the thing that they're saying is, and two, like how much regard they've had for the truth when they said that. Wait, what?
Oh, that, yes, the second part, yes. So the reason why I say no is suppose that in good faith you had that expose and it turns out all your sources were liars.
Yeah.
I don't think
that
that would change whether or not you would think that they're anti-Semites. In other words, what is this intuition pushing? It's pushing that this is not just about the effect that you cause in the world, right? Someone can go around, it could be the case, right, that responsibly dealing with the grooming gangs and exposing them at the appropriate time leads to increases in Islamophobia and anti-Muslim bias, right? Here's another example. I'm sure that 9/11, you would agree with this, caused a significant uptick in anti-Muslim bigotry. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever say that the attack on 9/11 was anti-Muslim? I don't think you would ever say that.
Nope.
I think you would think it's ridiculous to say that, right? And so therefore, conclusion, a state of mind is necessary here when we're talking about people. Now, there's one caveat which I agree does exist, and where Conduit was, I think, effective in getting me to re-remember it and clarify, and that is when the action you take is in and of itself discrimination on the basis of Judaism. So let's say you have someone who really doesn't harbor hate, any hate in his body, but whatever action they're taking is just by definition discriminating on the basis of anti-Semitism. That's a different concept of anti-Semitism, but I think it's sort of pushing on different things. But I would grant that would be a state of anti-Semitism just because the action you take is by definition anti-Semitic discrimination. But on the core concept here, and I'll let you respond.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've established that in order for someone to be anti-Semitic, they must have some culpable state of mind. They must have some prejudice, some hatred, some dislike for people on the basis of them being Jews.
So you're saying it has to have that state of mind.
I think
what about
both
someone
agree
just
that
off
I agree on
moron Couldn't a Down
Establish
syndrome
that.
person be anti-Semitic?
That's where I kind of find it a little bit more difficult. Maybe I can
What do you
maybe
think,
only
Mo?
argue this from examples, but well, okay, well,
Sure.
let's
Is this
just double check
motherfucker
before we
not
go into
here?
that.
Did he leave?
What's your opinion on, like, well, do you think there's a correlation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism?
Yes or no?
Yes.
Uh,
I made a point and you
if
weren't
you were to
here.
illustrate how strong you think that,
What was your point?
Lonerbuck said, or sorry, Pisco said that you have to have intent if you want to be anti-Semitic. And I said, well, couldn't a Down syndrome person be anti-Semitic? And that's true. They could. Even they're too stupid to have intent. They don't know what's going on.
Do you have to have intent
just-
if you want to be racist? Like, if I go around calling people the N-word, but I don't think it's, like, racist or whatever, and I have no intent to be, like, racist. That's what I'd ask Pisco.
correlation is, how would you do so?
I don't know that.
Okay.
That's just
In a 2-1 vote, the D.C. Circuit blocked President Trump's plan to build a new White House ballroom.
God damn it, I muted myself. Yeah, if someone went around calling people the N-word just because they thought it was funny that they got upset, that would be racism. Absolutely.
Is the money behind the
Energy.
This effort post autistically explains why this conversation is a waste of time.
You expect me to go read an effort post versus just listen to the convo? I'm not. I love you.
That sound is so bad. That sound is
I
fucking
don't have the data for that.
amazing. Fuck
Or just
off.
or do you have like an example?
I have an intuitive feeling if you want. Like
Okay,
I,
yeah.
I have a vibe about it.
Right.
My vibe about it is it's probably a significant correlation. In other words, at the 5 or 1% significance level, that you will see a rise in anti-Semitism given anti-Zionism. I do believe that, yes.
And why is that? Like, why is it the case that, say, someone who doesn't really harbor any, like, what we call like traditional like 20th century anti-Semitic opinions or whatever, but they do seem to just have like an overwhelming bigotry for like Israeli Jews who just happen to be like most of the world's Jews?
Oh, that's a further specification that I did not clarify just then. So,
Okay.
so I thought what you said was, is there a correlation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism? But I didn't hear you
Right.
say anti-Semitism indexed specifically to anti-Israel anti-Semitism. That it's like anti-Semitism only of Israeli Jews. If you do mean something more specific, then you're gonna have to ask it again.
Wait, so, well, anti-Zionism, I thought that would imply Israelis, no? Or Israeli Jews?
So anti-Semitism is what you were asking about, a correlation between anti-Zionism, which I would take to be a dispositional attitude against Zionism, right?
Okay.
And whether or not that's associated with anti-Semitism, and that is what I take to be discrimination, prejudice against Jews,
Right. Okay.
and that isn't specific to a more specific form of anti-Semitism, which is anti-Semitism of Israeli Jews. That would be equivocated. That's a different
Right, okay.
thing. Now we can talk about that, but I'm willing to grant you the greater, right? I'm willing to grant you that anti-Zionism is probably highly correlated with anti-Semitism, the overall anti-Semitism, regardless of whether they're from Israel or wherever, right? It's just the broader version. And the reason for that is I probably think every single anti-Semite is probably anti-Zionist. Actually, that's not true, right? Like you did have some, Nazi belief that they were encouraging emigration, I think, from Germany in the period and encouraging people to go to Israel. But that, I wouldn't classify that almost as like any form of pro-Zionism. To me, it would just be like their immediate goal is to get rid of the Jews in the Reich. And so I wouldn't really classify that as Zionism.
Yeah, definitely not. So in your world, like by your definition, is it possible then to be someone who, like, because this is the question I come up with a lot as well, is like, do you think that, say someone who doesn't harbor what you said, like a dislike, prejudice, or hatred on the basis of Jewishness, but they do hold bigoted opinions against Israeli Jews, and I guess by extension, like, just against Israeli Jews, is that just something different from anti-Semitism to you then?
Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah, it would be anti-Israeli Semitism or something, or anti-Jewish hatred of Israelis. It would be like, I don't know, a kind of what's the term where it's intersectional hatred or something? But it would be more specific. And again, I'm just being super anal just to make sure we have the right definition.
Yeah.
I think by definition it would be different than anti-Semitism because there's an additional
Wait.
condition.
Yep.
Waiting.
Okay, sorry. The leftists have kind of like used, or progressives have called people like anti-Semitic or Nazis for so long. You can't really the term is just very hard to ever use or defend. But it's worth noting for people that don't understand that we use that people like Pisco, all these people are operating on an insanely specific and unique definition of bigotry when it comes to anti-Semitism that they would never, ever, ever, ever apply to any other form of bigotry ever. We would always look at disparate impact of how our statements affect one people or another. We would always look at what is the effect of your statement, not necessarily what is the intent of your statement. We would always look at what is the percentage of people affected or impacted by a statement. We would always look at how much does the truthfulness of your statement play into how much we might perceive the bigotry of the statement to be. Like, all of these things are things we would consider for any other bigotry, but for the anti-Semitic stuff, we don't ever consider that now. It has to be like, for you to be anti-Semitic, you have to say, I hate the Jew. I hate the Jew. And if you don't say that, everything else can fly. You can make statements that are the equivalent of saying 90% of Jews are evil people, should be they all support genocide, and they like something has to be done with all of them, and all of them are part of like the Zog conspiracy and blah blah blah. But as long as you say Zionist, it's okay. It's that you can literally you can say whatever you want, but because it is dealing with like anti-Semitism, it doesn't count. It's just crazy to me. But I think people should be cognizant of that at least.
True.
Which
It's,
is that they be
sad, I would say.
Do you feel like it's a scary time to be Jewish, Dan?
Wait, what did you say?
I'm asking Dan if he feels like it's a scary time to be Jewish.
First off, I can say the answer is yes, and I can say that I live in a very Jewish area, and I still get to talk with a lot of Jewish people here, and all of them are very frightened, absolutely. And I think that if the net cause of whatever is going on, that American Jews are genuinely scared, I can say that what's going on with a lot of Democrats and a lot of what's going on in the country, if the end result is you have a population that's incredibly fearful, I think that that is something that should give people pause. If they're saying, "Oh, I don't hate all Jews. I just hate Zionists. Zionists scum. They should all be murdered." And I think that these people, like they're all extremely nervous. They're all the worst part about all of it is that I think a lot of them that were very liberal are feeling like they have to make this choice and become a single issue voter to them, and it's hard because I still believe that Republicans are way more likely to want to put Jews into a camp, but they're scared because right now one party is kind of like, we're going to protect you from people that are making it a slur to say Zionist and etc. And it's for them, it's nervous. And I don't want to say for people to think that this is unlikely. I'm not saying these are my views, but these are definitely views of Jewish people that are what's the word you would say, like non-practicing and practicing Jews. So just regular, Reform Jews as well as Orthodox Jews. I talked to them, and all of them are, well, Orthodox Jews kind of already went Republican, but the Reform Jews, they were always Democrats. And a lot of them are like, well, I guess I have to become a single issue voter. I have to be like the person, all I care about is abortion rights. So that's why I'm Republican, because I think that you shouldn't be able to kill your baby. Like, to a lot of these people, this wasn't their singular cause, and now it absolutely is. Vink, do not ever rush me again. You know what? You're banned for today for watching the show. If you continue to watch the show, you're doing it without my consent. That's rape. You will be a rapist. I'm just telling you right now.
Right, and that would imply that they don't have a problem with people on the basis of their Jewishness. What they have a problem with is on the basis of their Jewishness and their Israeli citizenship or Israeli connection. And so it's by definition different.
Yeah. So like, could you shorten that to the point that like so you can be bigoted against?
So as long as there's an and, then it can't be anti-Semitism.
Israeli Jews, but not anti-Semitic, right?
You can be bigoted towards Israeli Jews.
Yeah, but not anti-Semitic.
I think definitionally, you would. Let me just think about that. Semitic. It's possible to be anti-Jewish Semitic or whatever we're calling that, and not be anti-Semitic. I think that's true. Because in order to be anti-Semitic, you need to have hatred and dislike on the basis of Judaism, and there's two conditions.
Thank you, but I think he meant anti-Israeli.
That need to be met for the more specified version, which is both Judaism.
Dude, I'm getting triggered. I can't watch this for much longer. I'm sorry. This is not true. This is never a qualifier for any other form of bigotry, right? Nobody that is like patriarchal people or whatever don't necessarily hate women. They say these same things. I don't hate women. I just think that men belong in a hierarchy of women. Nobody has to hate black people or hate other races of people to feel like races are like essentially different from each other, like essentialized such as part of their DNA, right? I don't think that black people are worse than white people. I think they're better, for instance, at athletics, or I don't think Asians are worse. I think they're better at discrete fact memorization and math. I don't think they're better or worse. You would never, ever, 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 ever use this qualifier for any other form of bigotry. It's such a 2 IQ take. I feel like I'm listening to conservatives justify why it's okay to be race realist, or not conservatives, but like the crazy out there people justify on the basis that, well, I don't have a hatred for these people. This is like a toddler's understanding of bigotry. And it's not even a toddler's understanding, it's motivated reasoning, because he would never use these same qualifiers for any other form of bigotry. Okay, I'm done.
And the other thing. Oh, actually, no, it would be a subset of one, right? Or I don't know about that. Let me think about it. Someone help me with the logic here. I'm just trying to be consistent. So in this example, you wouldn't harbor hatred against a Jew who wasn't an Israeli citizen. Therefore, you wouldn't be anti-Semitic on that view. Yeah. So I think that follows. Yeah. I think I'm right.
Okay. In the regular discourse, are you going to split that many hairs between someone who?
No, I've never heard this concept before. I've never heard this concept of anti-Semitism, but only of Jews who are living in Israel or who have a connection to Israel. It's the first time I'm hearing ever of this concept.
Well, I guess this is often the basis on which people
mocking?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he was being honest.
Let's say there's this hypothetical person who really despises Israeli Jews, right? Like they're the worst people. They're all crazy, racist, extremists, and all that. And not only that, but they love Jews outside if those Jews are the good Jews, the ones who are not Zionists, the ones who don't sympathize with Israel, because most Jews outside of Israel do sympathize with Israel to some degree. So that would be a problem as well. Like people, because like this is when people. If you get like an extreme anti-Zionist is going to hate anyone who, or is going to have like a big issue with anyone who sympathizes with Israel. But most Jews outside of Israel do. So it's like someone who ostensibly has a strong, who is basically against anyone who is against like at least like 70% of Jews on the planet, because they're either Israeli Jews or they are Jews who sympathize with Israel.
Yeah, you just have to think about some of the person who would fit that mold, right? Let's think of the example person. The person who thinks in their life, let's say, they love the Jews in their life. They're married to a Jew, right? They're married, and in fact, they're thinking about converting to Judaism, right? But they really hate Jews in Israel. You wouldn't call that person anti-Semitic, would you?
If they get to a point where, like, if their Jewish friends are sympathetic to Israel.
What is this? Why are you rage baiting me?
I feel like he's making the argument of like, oh, well, I don't hate black people because I really like black people in Morocco. So therefore, I'm like not anti-black.
Like there were black slave people that like they're slaves and had like a fetish and everything for them too. It's this. You would never use this argument on anything. You know that almost every single sexist, misogynistic Christian man or whatever in the past has a wife.
Yeah.
Like it's such a definition. Do you understand that most racism isn't necessarily born out of just an evil hatred for another race? Most of it comes from, I think they are different, and then here comes like the racism, right? That black people are fundamentally different, that Asian people are fundamentally different. Like this is where most of it comes from. I feel like when they're talking about Jews, they have like this cartoonishly definition of racism that starts from like you have an evil in your heart and then you hate the other race because
no one wants to be like racist or anti-Semitic. They just don't want to, but they want to do these things, so they have to like create a new definition.
Yeah, it's just so, oh god.
Yeah.
Or they think Israel has a right to exist or some shit like that, then and then they're like, well, that's a bit of a deal breaker. I'm not really, like, you're just too genocidal or too some people will say that people who are Zionists should be treated the same as Nazis, right?
Conditions, but let's say that they don't fulfill those conditions. Let's say in the absence of you making it so they fulfill those conditions, but in their life they're going to marry a Jew, they want to convert to Judaism. I don't think that you would call that person anti-Semitic, right? Definitionally.
Well, they want to convert to Judaism, but like the only Jews that they'll tolerate are ones who are anti-Zionist, which is okay. Then this is where I get, so this is where I'm not sure.
Very narrow, specific concept.
He leaves the call every time.
Call someone like that anti-Semitic in the general sense. It would be like anti-Semitic in a more specific sense that is not necessarily inclusive of anti-Semitism more generally. It's a further specification. It requires something else. You know?
That's why I'm not sure if it does, and I'll tell you why. It's because, and I think the reason that people find it very hard to disconnect these two things is because it's not like Israel and Zionism is not just people who happened to be Jewish or happen to be Jewish living in an area. Like their being there is kind of like an intrinsic part of like the Jewish story, of like Jewish history. Like half of the world's Jews in the 20th century.
What you mean by it's intrinsic history? Can you just clarify what you mean by that? It's part of their intrinsic history?
It's like an intrinsic part of Jewish history. As in like Jews, because of the way the rest of the world treated them.
Prominent in their identity? That it's like important to them?
No, I'll just go through the sentence and you can see if it makes sense. because of how they were treated by the rest of the world, most of the world's Jews found themselves in a position in the 20th century where they didn't really have anywhere else to go. Some of them found a life as a minority in what was left of Europe after World War II. A good number of them went to America, but for the rest, they pretty much all of them had to go to Israel. Like that's what that's the for half of the world's Jews, that's what happened.
So half of the world's Jews literally just like went to Israel, where there was like pretty much just their historic homeland and like nothing, and they just built it from like the ground up. It's pretty crazy. Not in like a crazy mean way. I just mean like it's crazy that I feel like they had to go and create their own spot to feel safe.
Oh, you're being sarcastic. I get it.
Wait, I'm not.
Oh, no, it is. Oh, wait, are you not?
No,
Okay,
I'm
yes.
not. I'm not.
It is crazy what the Jews did. Like Tel Aviv, like was for the most part nothing, right? Like the Jaffa was there, and Steve knows more about this than I do. But like there was a lot of development that happened in a very hostile land for sure.
Yeah.
They didn't really have much of another choice. And when they were there, obviously, then they were faced with the other issue of existing either in a Jewish state or just existing as a minority under like a different nationalism that was very hostile to them. So to me, like Zionism is just like it's like a very intrinsic part of Jewish history to the point that like it was survival for half of the world's Jews. It was that or you're fucked.
I'm trying to understand what you mean by it's an intrinsic part of their history. Like it's an important part of their history.
Oh my God.
Or that it's like it happened.
As in, it's like it's a product of. As in, it happened to them because they were Jewish. Like,
is that what you mean by intrinsic? The word.
Yes, that's what I mean by intrinsic. Yeah.
Okay, so it's an intrinsic part of their history because it emanates as a result of bigotry
real
that
quick
they experienced.
There was a thing that I saw. I think it was a Reddit post, and someone answered it pretty well. But there was like, why is it? Is Judaism a religion? Is it a race? Or is it a culture? And
it's all three.
Yeah, and the response that someone said is that because Judaism is such a older thing, that it's actually kind of an ancient thing where it's a people that have a shared culture, heritage, and origin, and that we don't really see that type of thing anymore, and that's why it's unique, and that's actually like the Am Yisrael thing. The Am is the meaning of having that shared belonging or that shared trifecta, if you will, of what that is. But I think that's like confusing for a lot of people, and they kind of will continually push back on the it's just a religion or it's just other thing. Well, it's different than other things that are here. It's being Jewish is different in a lot of ways than being Christian. Like there's no proselytizing. I don't know. I'm probably not doing the best job of explaining it, but it is unique.
It's all three because it's so old. Like it probably started as a religion, and then from the religion, culture was built. Now you don't even need to be a practicing Jew, and you can still have
could be
the culture.
Jewish.
Yeah,
you could be a Jewish Buddhist person, and that's like a very unique thing. Like you could never be a Christian Buddhist. It wouldn't make sense, right?
But maybe in like 1,000 years, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
In various
it's like Native Americans. Yeah, I would say so. If Native Americans have like their level of religions, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Airbud fan.
Sure, yeah.
Airbud fan.
Actually, the opposite. It started out as a people, and the religion developed after. Sorry, forgot about Jesus.
Yeah, I would grant that on intrinsic meaning related to bigotry, anti-Jewish bigotry, that it is intrinsic in that sense. But I don't understand how that helps us clarify our notions of anti-Semitism.
We watched it live, James
say
Smith.
that anti-Zionism is by definition anti-Semitism. I don't think you'll go that far.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think it would depend on, again, because to me, coming back to the thing you said earlier about when people believe things that cause anti-Semitism or cause it to rise, I think it does depend on how much they've come to that conclusion, either in good faith or with a kind of like of how much regard they've had for the truth of their statements. So even though I think it can have like anti-Semitic outcomes. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where the schism is here. Is it really just in the idea that like this hypothetical person can be bigoted against Israeli Jews? They can hold a red line to any non-Israeli Jews who are Zionists or who have sympathies with Israel or not, but they're not anti-Semitic, right? Yeah.
I'm just.
Then can you never be like anti-black if you like Jamaica? Because it's just like Jamaica is like the good ones, but like all of the American ones are bad, so you can't like ever be racist towards black people. Instead, you're like racist towards African Americans.
I don't know, Mo.
It just feels like a really distinction. They genuinely look at the Groypers. They genuinely don't mind black people for the most part, and they all love Kanye / rap. So do we say none of them are racist at all? Yeah, I don't know. It's like it feels like we're drawing a really weird line here.
Working with this like example that you raised, which frankly, maybe there is such people who exist who are able to disconnect their beliefs about Jews, but also maintain a hatred which is dependent on Judaism. In other words, this kind of person would not be prejudiced against Christian anti-Zionists, right?
They wouldn't be
This is the kind of
prejudiced
person we're talking about.
against Christian anti-Zionists.
So if the kid who's go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Anybody that brings up like anti-Semitism and then mentions the religion should just never talk about anti-Semitism. It has nothing. I don't know why people keep allowing people to get away with this. I know Loner knows this. Anti-Semitism has nothing to do with the fucking religion. Okay, the country of Israel was founded by secular labor Zionists, by people who weren't there for the religion. When Loner earlier, I feel like he didn't express this in the best way. When Loner earlier said that Zionism was like an essential part of Judaism or whatever, or Jewishness, when there was the diaspora, when all the Jews were scattered from the Middle East and they lived throughout the world, the Jewish people had a concept. They had their religion and their cultural practices and their ethnicities that kind of like kept them together, even though they were all in separate communities. But they also had this idea that one day they would all come back to each other. I think ideally in Israel. What was the fuck saying? I think Dan knows it. It's like tomorrow in Jerusalem or whatever. What do you know?
Oh yeah. Next year in Jerusalem, you say to
Next
the
year
Passover.
it was like a meme. Yeah, it was basically like a meme or whatever. But because the Jewish people, this is one of the reasons also why Jews were not liked by other cultures, is because they tended to keep their culture intact, even though they were kind of like spread amongst other countries and communities, which is one of the reasons why they're perceived to be as outsiders.
Because it was like they were always going to go back.
Well, or they just like they were always persecuted for their beliefs, but they always like kind of kept their culture together, even though they were in other countries. But that idea of like coming back at some point to some common country was just like a thing that most Jews believed. So it's very, very hard to separate the Zionism from the Judaism in terms of ethnicity and culture because they were always kind of like ran concurrently with one another. But again, you would never, ever, 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 ever make these distinctions for any other type of bigotry where it's like, well, I can't imagine. What did Pisco just say? It was like, I can't imagine you hating this aspect of a person but liking this other aspect. Like, does he genuinely think that like all racist people don't like rap music? Like, does he really think that every racist in the country of the United States would never listen to Kanye West? Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah. I feel like Pisco would be defending the kid who went on Piers Morgan if the kid just says like, oh, well, I don't like Israeli Jews. And he'd be like, oh, well, he's not anti-Semitic. I don't know.
Dumb.
Really dumb.
But the problem with a lot of this shit is just that they would so quickly immediately call you racist if you were to do this for anyone else, like even remotely any portion of this type of logic for anyone else at all, for Islam, for being African American, any of that type of stuff would be immediate. Like, you're just a racist piece of shit. What do you want me to say? Like, you're out here saying that, yeah, okay, so you're saying everyone with curly hair that has an afro is bad? Yeah, you're just racist. Okay, that's all you're saying. It's like, okay, well,
no, I just don't like the afro.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's such a stupid argument. Like, you're just using this in place of what we all know you're saying here. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, Christian Zionists. My bad.
Oh, well, they probably dislike Christian anti-Zionists, but I don't know if they'd be bigoted against them, right? Or like against Christians.
So then what work is there? It sounds like the religion isn't doing much work there, or the ethnicity isn't doing much work there. It sounds like the Zionism is doing the work there.
I think Christian anti-Zionism, Christian Zionism, I think is much more of a choice, whereas I don't think most Jews in the world, well, it's literally most Jews in the world who are in Israel, I don't think they really had much of a choice in feeling a connection to Israel. I feel like that just kind of happened to them because they were born there. And even with Jews who were connected to it.
I'm just trying to get this. I'm just trying to get like this concept down, right? Like I'm imagining a person who is bigoted against Israeli Jews and is also like bigoted against Christian Zionists or something, let's say. And it just really sounds like the driver there is the anti-Zionism in this hypothetical person, because they're cool with Christians who aren't Zionists, and they're cool with Jews who aren't Zionists. And presumably if there's like, I don't know, atheist Zionists, they would have a problem with them too, right? Yeah, so like,
but I guess in the case of the Israeli Jews, it's a lot more, well, in the case of the Israeli Jews, it's more, that's the immutable one, right? For atheists and Christians, it's not immutable to be a Zionist. But for others to be like an Israeli Jew, yeah.
What would it mean to not be anti-Semitic, but to be anti-Semitic and anti-Zionists?
So if I'm cool with everybody in Jamaica, then I'm not anti-black? I'm just like anti-African American.
More specified. I'm having difficulty with that.
Okay,
notion
wait, I
myself,
just-
and I don't know why it's
Although
relevant.
people in Jamaica are not African American, Mr. Mooten. I don't know if you're being a little
No,
racist.
no, no.
there.
That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm
They're
saying
Jamaican
that.
They're Jamaican American, Mooten. Please.
You're not. You didn't understand. If I like people in Jamaica, then I'm not anti-black. I would, if I didn't like black people in America, then Pisco, I believe, would just describe someone like that as like anti-African American.
Be anti-Semitic, but I think you just said to be anti-Semitic, but to not be anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist. Can you rephrase that? Or
So to not be generally anti-Semitic, but to be specifically anti-Semitic only insofar as it relates to someone who has
Because the black are not in America. That's correct. Yes.
Zionist outlook. That's what I'm having trouble with. I'm having trouble with both like imagining such a person and also with why we think it's relevant to cashing out our concept of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, well, for a couple of reasons. So one, I'm kind of like and this is something I'm more on the fence of. I'm on the fence of whether or not like bigotry against Israeli Jews, like a bigoted form of anti-Zionism, basically, whether or not that should be just seen as a different form of bigotry to classical anti-Semitism, and that would clear up a lot of the confusion. Like for me, it's like quite easy to say, well, if you don't think, Mr. Piker or whatever is anti-Semitic, I mean, he's obviously bigoted against Israelis. He's bigoted against Israeli Jews. Like it's a very exceptional bigotry that he has for them. So
the way someone might be bigoted against like a Mexican, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you think that he's bigoted in a way against Israeli Jews in a way he wouldn't be bigoted against Israeli Muslims? Fair?
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But is in a way that it would be different with an Israeli Christian who, let's say, is incredibly Zionist in Israel. Would that be the same kind of prejudice against the Zionist Christian in Israel? Would that individual be subject to the same kind of attack by Hassan?
Yeah, probably. But again, like a Christian Zionist, to me, Christians as a group don't really.
Welcome back.
I just realized I kind of think that all of these guys will like basically trend towards being socialist types, because I just realized one of the amazing things that socialism does is it gives you kind of like a left-wing, like a strong left-wing anchor for your beliefs without having to dip into any of the actual social stuff, like the cultural stuff.
You're gonna have to explain that a little bit.
So one of the things that progressives, like when the party was pushed very far left, like in the peak woke era, the thing that progressives were pushing the hardest on were things like
Trans rights,
cultural things, yeah, or like minorities. I think it can like mostly summarize with the term identity politics.
Yeah.
And then the understanding that a lot of different types of identities can impact the way that you experience the United States. I think that for people like listening just to the way that Pisco talks here, I don't think he has any concept whatsoever of any type of intersectional understanding of anything or any type of like minority understanding of anything. And this kind of like trying to logic lord your way through like bigotry, I think is unfortunately, I'm sounding woke now, but it's like it's a uniquely white thing to be able to do that because you have no firsthand concept of how any of it works. And then you've never put in any of the work to try to understand how any of it works. But then for the socialist shit, it's like very, very easy to grasp onto that because it's identity
it's all class.
Agnostic. Yeah, you don't have to worry about what a person looks like at all. I feel like a lot of these I'm sorry, I'm sounding so woke, but like I don't think it's a coincidence that all of these like lefty type creators are like young, wealthy white men, and that all of them are having a lot of trouble seeing any of the issues with any of these upcoming like socialist type things. I don't think that's a coincidence. And I don't know if that's going to change because I don't see a mechanism for it because it's just so easy to not have to ever worry about it.
Because they've never had to actually like deal with it themselves.
Yeah. And then you don't have to, like, you don't really have to learn about it unless you were like in the woke era.
I guess my pushback would be like, I don't think Pisco would be classified as white. Do you?
In America? Yes.
In America, yeah. But I'm talking, I guess, broader.
Well, it doesn't matter. It just matters what your lived experience is, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I've had some people tell me, I'm not joking, okay? I've had some people tell me who are from other countries that like, I guess because the fact that my hair is brown and curly, they're like, oh yeah, I could tell that you were maybe like a little Cuban or blah, blah, blah. But like in the United States, I've never in my life, I've never, ever, ever, well, the only place where I've felt or experienced any kind of like hatred towards my upbringing or whatever would be from the lefties when they call me Gusano. But aside from that, in the real world, I've never, ever, ever had any pushback related to my race before.
Yeah, same. I can't think of one time. Unless it's like my Mexican side of the family making fun of me for being white. Or I guess like whiter. But that's like a...
So I think, I bet this will be a bigger thing
to go forward.
Yeah, because I don't know where any kind of corrective mechanism is going to come from because now all of the old woke things do kind of come back, and that like minorities really just don't have the ability to exercise that much power or control. Like majority classes are overrepresented in terms of wealth and everything else, but also in terms of audience, right? So if I make videos that are appealing to my majority white audience and we're only fixated on issues that my majority white audience can kind of like get behind, then yeah, why would I not continue to do that?
Do you think we're going to see more like, I guess, like anti-minorityism from left-wing politics then? Like telling them like to get in line and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at like, we already laughed at the clips, but like, yeah, where Hassan's like screaming like, I don't care what black people think and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We might have a party flip coming up.
Unironically, I thought about that a little bit because could you imagine like, if you had, oh, dude, and it's going to suck because everyone's going to say, I knew he's going to become a Republican, but could you imagine if you had to choose between like a party full of like Hassan Pikers and then like a party full of, say, like Adam Kinzingers?
Yeah.
Like, that's an easy pick for me. Like, yeah, I guess I'm on the pro-life side now, I guess. But like, I mean, like, that's an easy, I wouldn't even have to think twice about
how much of the, was it when did the parties flip? Was it JFK?
No,
it was like near
60s,
Lincoln, right?
Wasn't it?
I don't know. Well, I can look it up.
Like where they flipped most of the policies and things like that. It flipped at one point. I remember, obviously. I'm curious what positions stayed and what positions left when that happened.
1930s and the 1960s. It took place gradually across two major eras.
Okay, so one was JFK, the other was what, Lyndon B. Johnson, or
yeah,
was it?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So what were the big shifts that like, oh, we were Republicans and we were pro-life and what, now they weren't? Like what? They must have had abortion back then, or was it just flat out illegal for everyone in the 60s? Like they must have still had like gun control issues and things along those lines. I'm curious.
I'm just on AI overview.
Yeah,
Republicans shifted towards opposing federal intervention and championing free markets and business conservatism, while Democrats became associated with modern liberalism and a larger federal safety net. That's the 1930s economic shift, and then the civil rights shift in the 1960s. The Southern realignment. This alienated many white conservative Southern voters who had historically voted Democrats in the Civil War. Over the subsequent decades, the Republican Party's Southern strategy successfully courted these voters, turning the American South into a Republican stronghold.
Yeah, but what positions was it that the slave owners were like, I love Democrats, and then they're like, you know what, I'll give them up? Like, what did they used to stand for? Something that was great for slave owners, or what?
My guess would be racism. Probably was a big one that moved them to the Republicans.
I just don't like. I can't imagine any like. Imagine like tomorrow, like Republicans are you know what? We hate guns, and Democrats are like, we love guns. Like, I don't know how.
It's never going to be quite that simple. You should probably just read or look it up and read about it. I'm sure there were other political issues and stuff at the time that impacted it. Yeah.
It seems like it took over 30 years too.
Would it not be more likely though that we would see like there used to be another party inside of America that was more dominant, I think, than the Republicans. What the was it called? The Whigs or something? Hold on. I'm just, God, no, there's a political parties of the United States. Yeah, the Whigs, WHIG. And then we had, I guess there was Federalists, but that was way at the beginning. So was Whigs, actually. And then we had a Union president with Andrew Johnson. I just wonder if there's place for, I don't want to say a third party, but a party to like, what about if you created a party that took all of the positions that most Americans have and kind of created this third party with it, I guess. So what would that be? That would be like sensible immigration policy, sensible criminal policy, probably some immediate place on taxes, and then a lot of the Democratic views. Wouldn't that just sweep? Because like I think a lot of Democrats still side with the Republicans on immigration and crime. So shouldn't that be the goal there? I don't know where you land on things.
I mean, yeah,
like
it probably
abortion.
would.
The problem is nobody can say no to the lefties. For some reason we just cannot.
It is. I wonder if there's a strategy there. By the way, you could probably do way better with this than I can. But the idea is, just because someone has Democratic in their name doesn't mean we would not canvass or invite into the tent, so to speak, the Green Party. Why would you do it with the DSA? They're nothing like us. They're completely opposite from the party. The only thing the same is that they have Democratic in there. If there was the Republican Socialist Party, we wouldn't expect them to be in there. I think it's just because they have the word Democratic that we even let them in the first place. We should treat them like the Green Party. Like, we don't let Jill Stein come hang out with us, right? That's someone that siphons away votes. We should treat them like the enemy, not have a serious conversation with them. But I don't know how the best way to make people feel like the DSA is no different than the Green Party, as opposed to what they like to say is that we're not like the Green Party, we're like the Tea Party. You know, we're a part of the Republicans. We're just the flank of it. And it's like, no, it's way different than that. Someone's saying Macron made his party. I don't know how he did that. Be good to find that out.
It feels like the Zionism is doing the work here, right?
Not really, because again, for a Christian as a group, because bigotry does come down to groups, Christians don't really have to be Israeli. For Jews who are born in Israel, they kind of have to be, like, they don't really have that much else choice. Like, some of them can go and get like dual citizenship and all that, but as far as it goes with like the whole point of like as a collective, they don't really have another place to
whether they do or not, right? Like, it could be true that they don't have another place to go. That would just be like, I guess, some additional, mitigating circumstance that we should like be more sympathetic to them. But why does it change like these concepts, right? Like, would you classify like anti-Zionism itself as a form of bigotry? I don't think you would, right?
No, I don't think it's a form of bigotry. No.
Oh my God. Sorry. Keep in mind that this is from the same group of people. Anti-Zionism. He just no understanding about.
Well, it would be bigotry. No, you're literally asking them not to like have their own place.
Like, well, like on a very, 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 very strict level, maybe you could say it's not bigotry. But then, like the easy reverse of this would be like, oh, okay, so if you're anti-Islam, is that bigotry? Now he might bite the bullet and say, well, I guess it's not technically bigotry, but like, I mean, like I said that thing a long time ago on stream where I was like, listen, I am Islamophobic. I hate religion, and everybody got mad at me. I don't know if Peace was one of those people, but everybody's like, oh, Islamophobia is actually bad, blah blah blah, and I was like, okay, well, but like, would he say that like if I say like I hate all like Muslim belief, Christian belief, I'm anti whatever, I'm Islamophobic, I'm pretty sure he would say, and fairly so, it's like, okay, well that's bigoted, right? You can't be.
Well, they do the meme where that's just a religion. That's not the trifecta meme, right? So that's the way that they get rid of it. Is that
well, sure, but even Islamophobia implies hatred of Islam. That's just a religion, right?
Yeah.
It's not even it doesn't even denote a certain race, but Islamophobia is considered bigotry.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. Right, but the idea of being anti-Zionist is that you can kind of covertly say that you dislike Jewish people and be as hateful as you want to them, because it's like, oh, it's there's Christian Zionists. Boom.
Dan
solved.
Saltman is the money behind this operation.
Someone should take a Hassan clip ranting about Israel and replace Jews with Muslims or any other ethnicity. Since it's not anti-Semitic, it shouldn't be Islamophobic.
I think I
also
did that. Yeah.
Like all of if we were analyzing this from a neo-Nazi perspective, we're way over the needed threshold to qualify for all of our like essential anti-Semitic tropes, right? Like we don't have Jews secretly controlling Nazis will say that Jews secretly control the government, whereas all of the lefties now just say it's AIPAC. AIPAC is the single determining factor in every single election. And also, AIPAC does secretly coordinate with and collaborate with the Israeli government. And they do have a huge determinative impact on U.S. elections. Like, this is everything you need for, like, your bog standard anti-Semitic theories is right here. Like, every single part is here and working. Ugh.
And do you think that Hassan would be prejudiced against Israeli Jews who are not Zionists?
No, but I don't really think that really exonerates.
Look at the Scott Wiener guy. What did Hassan say?
Didn't they fight him because he like barely like didn't put his flag up or whatever around like a genocide? I don't remember. It was something like that.
No. He calls it a genocide. Just like Ethan Klein. Just like Ethan Klein. But like look at the Scott Wiener guy. What did Hassan say that Scott Wiener would have to do to be the equivalent to earn his like creds back as a person who wasn't like a Zionist supporter? Do you remember?
Not off the top of my head. Didn't he say like he'd have to vote against like all of the like aid to Israel or whatever? Or did he go further than that?
Weak. Worse than that, he said that the guy would have to support
pro-Hamas. That's what it is.
In order for it to be
which
the
is
equivalent. So
crazy.
like what the fuck are we doing here?
Today I was let go from my Democratic consulting job for participating in an event that also featured Hassan the Hun, which my employer decided was, quote, offensive and also unprofessional. I'm looking for any and all opportunities in Democratic/liberal politics. If that's true, that's a big rip bozo.
Oh, I also, Brian said he was going to remove that thing and they'll never post
He did.
something again. So, yeah.
Wait, what happened? Say that
Brian
again?
Tyler Cohen removed the quote of Hassan from his Instagram.
Yeah, I messaged him and I was bitching, and he was like, "I don't do my media post there, but we'll
Yeah,
never post on Hassan."
yeah.
You know what? I'll say this, that like I have friends and they're not plugged in, and I'm like, well, what do you do for politics? And they all say like Brian Tyler Cohen. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this guy is an important guy to get for normies, like unironically, like very
Him
very
and
important.
David Pacman and all the Midas Touch. Unfortunately, yeah, they're all like very very well. I say unfortunately. I mean, they're not.
I've heard Ezra Klein's name a lot too from normies.
Sure, but that's like it's less Ezra Klein and more like the
New York Times. Yeah.
Yeah, but Ezra Klein is a big voice on the New York Times. So yeah.
You have to be
BTC is a
pro-Hamas
good
when
one
you're
to have them
anti-genocide.
understand, yeah.
You have to be
a good
pro-Hamas when you're anti-genocide. Classic.
I don't like whataboutism, but I feel like you have to hold these people to account the fact that they've said nothing ever about anything in Sudan or Yemen or with Iran killing people.
They have the most annoying way out of that too, where they go, "Well, those people aren't our ally." Like,
What
is
does that
that
have to
the
do with
only
anything?
condition upon which you give a fuck? It's such a weird. Like, people have just because these leftist talking points never get challenged. They're allowed to just remain as part of the conversation without anybody taking like 2 seconds to be like, "Wait a second, isn't this kind of like really? Isn't that like the most possible talking point you could ever have?" Because just nobody even thinks about it. It's
Dude,
annoying.
this is
And
literally
also-
this morning. Sorry. Hassan Piker sitting at a table with an LGBTQ plus flag says, overall, my favorite flag is Hezbollah. And then Hassan says, this is a comedy podcast. I know it's a difficult concept for an Israeli to understand.
Babe!
Like, this is
Because
today.
Jews don't understand. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, Israelis don't understand comedy. Yeah.
This is 10 minutes ago. Go ahead, Dan.
Do you know what's funny about this is that I'm pretty sure, I think this is well known. Austin is like Lebanese and gay, and like that he's probably not a fan of Hezbollah. Like he probably hates those people. If I had to guess, he's not like a huge fan of Hezbollah.
They don't know anything about it though, so it doesn't matter to any of them.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of I don't know if it's just so like so tone deaf, so everything, and no one gives a shit. But I the whole idea of like we only do this for our allies, as you're saying, part of me just wishes that Israel would stop accepting money, but then they would just say that they're getting secret money because it doesn't matter. Like, have you seen like the track AIPAC shit? It's not even like has AIPAC given money? It's like as someone that's Jewish that has given money to AIPAC, given money to these people at that point. So even if like, first off, what are they getting? Like $10 billion or something? It's just like so inconsequential of the GDP of what Israel does, and the idea that like we're single-handedly keeping Israel up and murdering people is just so ridiculous. But I do wish that Israel would stop taking all money altogether from the United States, because then at least they would have to be conspiratorial.
A lot of right-wingers in Israel agree. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they move in that direction. Yeah.
And it actually paid out very well for him. He won the race at the end of the day. That's it. This is an operation right now by a lot of establishment figureheads to see if Abdul's pliable to their demands. That's what they're testing out. Okay? The private conversations that he may or may not be having, and I don't know, I haven't asked him, with party bosses and officials that I'm certain are probably asking him behind closed doors, like, what the fuck is this? Why are you hanging out with this guy? This guy's a fucking real danger. Sure,
yeah, this guy
if I
who
were
has
in
a
his shoes-
9/11 poster that he just framed a week ago behind him. That guy. The guy who never
The
apologized.
Finkelstein interview.
PSA
with,
10 out of 10.
The Finkelstein interview with the Finkelstein having that "fuck Kamala Harris" poster behind him the entire time.
Yeah, it's just so like this. That's the problem with all of this. It's just no one ever calls this to account. Like, he's not sorry for the America Does 9/11 thing. He blamed it on being ESL. And then he hangs a poster a week ago behind him. He just loves terrorism. That's it. That's all there is. There is nothing else to it. He loves terrorism and hates democracy. And hates the Democrats. Well, no, I could say he hates democracy. He wants us to be in like an authoritarian. He wants like probably not Bernie Sanders anymore. I don't know who it would be. Maybe himself at the charge of some dictatorship, throwing everyone who's an unbeliever in a camp.
This dude is not an anti-Semite. Of course, people are presenting him as such. They're presenting me as such as well. It's totally ridiculous. And yeah, he says some crazy shit from time to time. I mean, he's a shock jock, right?
Oh my god, bro.
But the reality of the matter,
dude, it's like it's Trump. It's literally Trump levels of like sweeping. Oh, it's locker room talk. Yeah, who cares? It's disgusting.
matter is the under 45 demographic came out strong and allowed us to defeat $64 million in outside expenditures. Those door knockers mattered.
64 million.
Those canvassers mattered. Of course, you know, this was
why does that number? This is why I know
every
the
day
number is not accurate. I'm sure they must have spent something. I'm sure, but like I don't know what that number is, and it changes every time somebody brings it up. I had one guy call me out on Twitter saying that like, oh, you think the voter fraud thing, or do you think that Umich guy made a huge hugely determined the outcome of the primary election, but you don't think $30 million of APEC money did? And then somebody else tweeted me, like, I think Keith mentioned like 60 million.
60,
and then I've heard
60,
million.
70, yeah.
I feel like it goes up 10 million every time it's mentioned. Like the
people asked it to the campaign. You guys are being fucking ridiculous. Because that's ultimately the calculation at play here. And more importantly, it would just look terrible for him if he were to be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done this. It would look terrible for him, not because I'm popular.
He will do that, by the way. And Hassan will cope.
We'll see.
Maybe.
He'll do it. He will have to do it. The attacks
if he wants to win in Michigan, I feel like he probably will have to. Like, I mean, that's
you don't know how insane these ads are going to be from the Republicans. They're going to murder him.
If they actually do their homework, talk about getting blackpilled on thinking there's any secret anything running any part of our political system. Because it's always been like the same, like one or two. Again, and I understand the 9/11 clip is spicy, and it is, but there are better ones that you could play. Also, my audience and everybody else. People have no mind of like how things look on the outside for anything. Like, for instance, like the sex pest attacks against me are really effective in our atmosphere, but trying to convey that to like a normie, if my court case gets dismissed, you're going to look like crazy. Like, this guy was sexting a person who a minor and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just going to be fucking crazy. Like, oh, okay. So anyway, here's a Hassan clip talking about how he thinks it's actually a little bit better when rich white girls are being on college campuses than poor white girls being on college camp. Like that, it pales in comparison to how insane some of these clips look. But these people have operated in these insanely environments for so long. They're like, oh no, I actually think that Hassan could explain these things away. There's a reason why they have to adopt the Trump strategy, the MAGA strategy of like, we just don't ever answer for our own. We never criticize our own. We always hold everybody to this like unimpeachable standard such that like they are unimpeachable. We won't talk negatively about them ever. And yeah, whatever. Sorry, keep playing.
In general, because all it would signal is that they were hypocritical. That Abdul was a hypocrite. You know, he got caught. He fucked up. This, for the record, is the reason why this community played a formative role in this campaign. Okay? Age was the clearest dividing line in vote choice in last night's Michigan Democratic Senate primary, with LSAD performing substantially better in younger precincts. That's it. This is a fucking primary, chat. This is a primary for the midterms. This level of youth turnout can only happen if you have a dynamic candidate that is speaking to the interests of youth voters that normally feel disillusioned and never go out to vote. And this doesn't happen if Abdul can't get in front of them. And it's not like these voters are tuning into CNN or MSNBC. They're tuning in here. They're watching the YouTube clips. They're watching the TikTok clips. They're tuning in every day on the broadcast. It's you. They're talking about you when they say this.
Keith Edwards yesterday.
Oh, he was trying to signal boost my lawsuit stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder how many like people just feel running to with these huge document like Google Drives are trying to explain how much of a child I am. Jesus Christ. But another reason also why these attacks don't really work as well against me, or they can work maybe against me, is that I don't try to hardcore align myself with any particular politician. Like, who are you going to go after for me? Like, this guy appeared with Destiny in every, like, nobody does this. Like, and there's a reason why. Like, I don't demand this from anybody, you know? Like, yeah.
So if he wouldn't be biased against an Israeli Jew who is non-Zionist, it doesn't sound like he's bigoted against Israeli Jews.
But then we're making the argument that like how many bigots exist in the world then? Like, is Tommy Robinson not a bigot because he's friends with like a couple of British Muslims who
True.
are like, we just want to love Britain and stop the Islamification? Or like, is
True.
a BNP person not bigoted against Muslims because they're Muslim members of the BNP? Like,
True.
probably.
No, we're assuming that we know their mental states, right? So like that's like a kind of epistemic question of like whether, but like assume that you really did know that Hassan like harbored no prejudice against Israeli Jews who are non-Zionists. Suppose that you knew that, right? Put aside the epistemic and you just knew this to be true. I think.
Wait, what is this useless hypothetical though? Like you can never know.
You can never know somebody. You can only determine based on their actions and the way, like, yeah, it's just so dumb.
It would be accurate to say he's by definition not bigoted against them as a class.
It's just like a useless thing to argue.
No, because I think when you get to a point where
is the only person that I've seen, or he's the best at using hypotheticals to obscure so much of a conversation. I don't think I've ever seen anybody.
He's the GOAT.
he is the GOAT at using hypotheticals and shit to obscure.
Where you are making your acceptance of a national group conditional on them agreeing with you, that's still bigotry. And that's the same thing with anti-Muslim bigotry in the UK. You can't just say
what
that
would you
like,
take bigotry to be.
It's
then I'm having a problem with this notion of bigotry. Then
it's a broad like prejudice against a particular group for some kind of like national or ethnic or religious characteristic, or like a immutable characteristic.
Like so some sort of immutable characteristic. That's the basis of the discrimination. But in the example we're using of Hassan, where we can read his mind, it doesn't sound like what's causing the discrimination is the immutable characteristic.
Like I'm gonna do a Destiny classic, but like we could throw up a analogy here. Like let's say like the guy really didn't hear the girl screaming no. Like is he a rapist then? Like if he just doesn't know? Is that like what Pisco's like arguing here?
Characteristic of his genetic makeup. It doesn't sound like what's causing it is, I don't know if nationality is immutable, but I don't think it's on the basis of nationality. It sounds like the basis of the prejudice is
their
belief,
opinions?
the Zionist belief.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
like that. Does he not understand? It's just, I'm
predictive.
it's just so good. I'm sorry.
And on everything, it's perfectly predictive of every single situation, right? It's perfectly predictive of the Christian Zionists. It's perfectly predictive of the Jewish Israeli non-Zionists. It's perfectly predictive of presumably the Muslim Israeli, right? It just sounds like in this example, it's the Zionism that's predictive, and therefore it's Zionism that we can say is the but-for necessary condition to the negative disposition.
Again, I'm just not. So again, that does mean. Wait, first of all, do you disagree with that definition of bigotry?
No, I don't think. I think bigotry is usually like some sort of harbored prejudice. I'm okay to work with that.
But does this mean that I can no longer call Tommy Robinson like an anti-Muslim bigot because there are Muslims who agree with him, even though they're still practicing Muslims, and he likes them?
No. The difference there is like we don't believe. We think that those are like token figures, and that we don't trust him, and we think that he's manipulating, he's a liar, and so there's an epistemic barrier. But
not necessarily.
Really
no, I don't know.
believes,
I think he sincerely likes them. I think his whether or not he likes them is just, it's so conditional on whether or not they conform to his ideal or what he thinks a Muslim should be. And I think it's the same with Hassan. Like the bigotry against the Israeli Jew is like, it's like because they don't live up to his expectation of what he thinks an Israeli Jew should be.
Yeah, but it's part of the expectation based on the intrinsic characteristics, or is it all based on their conduct and ideology? That's the question, right? Like, is the expectation that he has of Jews different than the expectation he has of Christians or Muslims? That's a question.
Again,
I gotta go back.
Characteristics, or
whether or not they conform to his ideal or what he thinks a Muslim should be. And I think it's the same with Hassan. Like the bigotry against the Israeli Jew is like, it's like because they don't live up to his expectation of what he thinks an Israeli Jew should be.
Yeah, but it's part of the expectation based on the intrinsic characteristics, or is it all based on their conduct and ideology? That's the question, right? Like, is the expectation that he has of Jews different than the expectation he has of Christians or Muslims? That's a question.
Again, I find it, I'm not really able to apply this.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Because I think it matters when you're talking about a particular collective group, and also about whether or not it's compared to when it comes to their approach to Zionism, not in the same way, no.
Well, but regardless of that, I mean, you're saying that it needs to be a collective group with respect to a different purpose?
Yeah, because if you are
I'm confused. He got me. He's obscured the argument so much that I'm confused. I don't even know what he's arguing right now.
What? Pisco?
Yeah,
has managed to obscure an argument such that nobody knows what the fuck is even being spoken about anymore?
I have no idea what's going on here.
Like if you're a Jew who lives in the middle.
Hi, kitty cat.
at least, like, why do you think those Jews are Zionists for the most part?
Probably because they want a place to exist where they're not going to hopefully be persecuted by everybody, but that I don't know how that's going.
I'm not sure why it's relevant, but I assume that they're Zionists because they were taught to be Zionists, because they were told about Zionism, and before them, because of facts about their reality, facts about the geopolitical situation.
Okay,
and,
wait, facts about the reality. Can we go further into that?
Yeah, that was the
so
big one.
I
I'm glad you
presume
hit that
people,
because you almost made it sound like they're Zionists because they're brainwashed
They're
by
just told.
the elders of Zion or whatever. But like there is no factual
Reason
thing in the
to
world
be.
that might push them in that direction, or
taught their ideologies, and they're informed by their experience. And one experience that Israel has had is constant conflict with its neighbors. And so I'm assuming if you're asking like causally what's forming these beliefs in a person, right?
Oh, what reinforces them as well.
Zionism
So facts about
predated
the reality.
Israel. We're
Say
close.
it
Keep
again?
going, Pisco. Well, I said Zionism predates Israel, so keep trying, Pisco. It's not just the conflict with Israel and its neighbors. Keep going.
I assume it's like their nurture, what they're told.
If you're Israeli and a patriot, would you be a Zionist? I would say yeah, probably.
1,000,000,000%.
And then what they experience.
Yeah, so what
it's kind of a broad answer, but that's what I
no,
assume.
that's fine. You mentioned conflict as well, as in like, what does them being Zionists have to do with the fact that they're in conflict with people around them?
Well, I assume that sort of nationalistic ideologies, to the extent that there's like competing or attacks from without, or you might say conflict with other national groups, that this might, as a natural tendency, again, I'm not a fucking geologist or anything, but have the effect of
It's not Zionism was not like an attack. Loner understands this. I'm glad Loner's having this conversation. It's not an attack on ideology where white people were anti-Semitic, and Zionism didn't arise because Israel was fighting with its neighbors. Like, you needed Zionism to make Israel. Hopefully, Loner will push into this. Like, where do you think it came from?
Promoting such an ideology in a populace that's sort of apt to hear the message.
Well, Zionism is the reason that Israel exists.
Yes.
Like it.
And where does it? And why do? Yeah, there's like a condition that people attacking Jews for whatever fucking reason for however long, like, were things that happened, and it is why the Jewish people felt like they needed a fucking country. It's why most people feel like they need a place for their people to live or whatever.
In addition to like the kind of like, and here I'm not using the negative connotation of indoctrination, the indoctrination that you might have in like a school or in a society where that's spread along. So yeah, but I'm not sure why this is relevant to the question of what anti-Semitism is.
I think it's relevant because we're getting to the idea of, I can just lay it out rather than like going through the chain of questions.
Sure.
I think most Jews in Israel are Zionists because if they didn't have a Jewish state, they'd probably be fucked. Like they'd either be in serious trouble when it comes to like violence from people around, from the like national groups and other forces around them. Like their entire survival would be in question. Because then you're saying that like I'm not bigoted against it. So now I'm a hypothetical person who says I'm not bigoted against Israeli Jews. I just need them to stop believing something that's quite essential to their survival.
Yeah. So in that context, maybe one would infer a hatred. But let's say that you really didn't harbor a prejudice against them on the basis of that trait, right? It's just analytical. I'm going to be honest with you and Frank. It sounds like you're trying to change the meaning of some of these terms.
Sorry, that my cat hit the sound. My cat hit the sound.
Really?
It's on the floor and my cat is jumping around.
Yeah.
Terms
Okay.
to fit people in certain boxes. It sounds like all these exceptions and these Christianity is a class with respect to a goal. It sounds like we're doing a lot of work to like fudge the definitions to fit certain outcomes that we want based on like what we think would be good for the world. Like it would be good for the world if anti-Semitism includes these people for some reason. But like I just don't understand like why. Is that what you're doing, or are we trying to like understand some standard notion of anti-Semitism as used by people?
Well, I was trying to do a couple of things, but just to come back to what you were saying, like just to confirm what you said there, it sounds like
a
the
really
idea.
simple question I wish that Loner would ask here is like, if I say I hate all Mexicans, would you consider me racist? If I say I hate all people that speak Spanish, would that be bigoted? What if I really just don't like the way that Spanish sounds? Or what if I feel like people that speak Spanish are just less intelligent? Does that make me bigoted? But I have Spanish-speaking friends. Am I a bigot there?
Is that you can be in a position against Israeli Jews where you can say that I'm prejudiced against them, but just for their beliefs. But it just happens to be a belief that is quite important, is like pretty important to their survival, like to their safety. And then that just kind of means, well, I'm going to hate them.
Zionism is good.
I'm going to hate them, or they give up their. Yeah, so I'm just like saying, but if we go to the question of like, it's like the position would basically be like, I'm going to hate this group until they believe things and act in a way that will put them in danger.
Yeah, but assume he doesn't think that it puts them in any material danger.
Assume they don't think that.
Yeah, assume he's sincere and he says, but they won't be in danger. It'll just be a peaceful situation and they'll integrate. I mean, there might be a few problems, but it doesn't really threaten them. And,
Yeah,
and
and
suppose
that's
that person were
okay.
sincere.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then that's where I would get to a question of like, okay, then the next thing I would ask is like how much regard for
But you
the
wouldn't call that
facts of
person
the matter.
anti-Semitic,
Not
right?
inherently, but I would ask like I would move on to ask the question of like how have they come to that conclusion? Like how responsibly have they attained that conclusion?
But that's an epistemic question, and maybe that would bear on their responsibility in informing themselves. But I don't think that you would say that that person is anti-Semitic.
Not inherently, no.
Yeah. So and again,
Like, what is that? Like, we're
I
like
just
Pisco just joked about, or not joked about, but Pisco was complaining about like inventing special definitions or whatever. This would be a very academic conversation on racism for me to draw like these distinctions. Most people would be happy to call somebody I said this would be a very academic conversation on what? On bigotry.
Racism. Oh yeah.
Yeah, on bigotry or racism to have this type of conversation. Most people in real life would never draw this distinction between like are you intrinsically bigoted or intrinsically racist, or are you just like racist in practice? Nobody in real life is drawing these distinctions. They generally just see them the same.
Yeah, I don't think that these are meaningless distinctions in a real life scenario. So I don't know why. I guess maybe he just wants to argue academically about it. I don't know.
No, he wants to create the carve out because he doesn't want to see himself as a big bad anti-Semite or furthering big bad anti-Semitism on his side.
But isn't everybody in the normal reality just going to see him as an anti-Semite?
No, because nobody gives a fuck about Jews.
Oh,
What are you talking about? Who cares, brah?
Yeah.
I
True.
think that's fine to say. Like there are a lot of bad and evil positions that aren't anti-Semitic, right? It could be the case that anti-Zionism is evil, right? But it might just not be anti-Semitism.
So
has he asked Pisco, how would Pisco define anti-Semitism? Does Pisco say it has to be you hate Jews? Like, and you have to say you hate Jews?
I don't think he's given a definition, but that's a classic actually.
I've never gotten to ask this question, even though it was suggested to me a long time ago, and it's a really good one, is you ask somebody, like, what do you think this person would do if they were trying to do the thing that I'm claiming they're trying to do? So, like, for leftist infiltration into the Democratic Party, like asking somebody, okay, well, you claim that Hassan says he's not anti-Semitic. You claim that these people say this. You claim these people say that. I'm just curious, if you were trying to infiltrate a movement, and you obviously don't want to get caught, what are some of the things that you would say or do? I'm curious how they would approach that. If you wanted to be openly anti-Semitic, like, what do you think you would say or do? Like, I don't know if people are aware of this, okay? But like Hitler and the Nazis, when they talked about Jews, they didn't just hate Jews because Hassan Piker, like people are posting goofy looking pictures and calling them inbred. Like they also very legitimately thought that Jews were controlling huge portions of the population. They thought that Jews were trying to usher in communism into Nazi Germany, the Judeo-Bolshevism stuff. They thought that Jews were responsible for Germany losing World War I, the stab in the back or whatever. They thought that Jews were unfairly trying to punish Christians and profiting from things like usury and stuff. Like all of like, it's not like the hatred for the Jews came from like, I just hate Jews intrinsically because they're Jews. Like they had their reasons for hating them too. Most bigots have their reasons for being bigoted. It's not random. And there aren't large swaths of humanity ever at any point in time, even in our worst points in human history, morally speaking. It wasn't like there were just more evil humans on the planet at that point in time. We didn't have more evil people in the United States when slavery was legal. People all have their rationalizations and justifications for believing and doing stupid things.
Yeah, and it's still bigoted.
Yeah.
When it comes to talking about the difference between like hating a Christian anti-Zionist and like an Israeli, Christian Zionist and a Jewish Zionist who live in Israel, I think the anti-Semitism comes in one because I think a lot of like anti-Zionism seems to express itself in a very similar way to how anti-Semitism has done for many hundreds of years, and also just because of the fact that it literally is just concerning the lives of like most of the Jews on the planet. Like, I think that's kind of why it's like harder to disconnect.
That's maybe it's harder to like emotionally disconnect, or like it's hard to put that aside when you're thinking about it. I'm sure that it bears on like circumstantial evidence we might have, and I certainly would think that like a responsible person takes into account these facts, these structural facts. But I don't think it changes the notion of what anti-Semitism is. Let me give you an example, right? Let's say that you knew that the only way to save the Jewish people was to totally obliterate Gaza and to genocide Gaza.
Jesus.
Okay? Oh my God! It's the
and wipe them
it's like
all
the
out.
argument at the end of the Manhattan guy. What was the name of that fucking movie?
The Manhattan Project?
No, the big blue guy with his dick swinging around. You know what I'm talking about?
God, it was a comic book series. Watchmen.
Yeah, it's the end of that. It's like the only way we can save humanity is we have to destroy Gaza. This is the premise now. Okay.
But you could read into the minds of the would-be genocide people,
Mhm.
and you know for a certainty that they do not hate these people on the basis of them being Muslim or having any particular ethnic heritage. You certainly would say that these people have genocidal intent. You
Mhm.
certainly would say that these people are effectively wiping out a whole group of people. Would you say that they're anti-Muslim? Again, this is like a one
Yeah,
of these,
no,
like,
yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got
no,
it.
right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't say that. And,
Okay.
and that might be like, well, how can you say that? They're wiping out, like, that's just based on the definition of the term, right?
Mhm.
It's evil, let's say. Maybe it's evil. Maybe it's like another horrible thing. It's
Does Pisco believe it's a genocide?
Yeah, of course. I get you should get
Like
banned. I can't believe you asked that. Of course.
my only thing is because like he's willing to like go so far in these arguments that I feel like if he wanted, he could argue himself out of like the genocide.
Well, he could argue himself out
Thought.
of anything at this point.
Yeah, it just seems.
just not anti-Muslim bigotry. Things can be horribly evil, right? There are war crimes that can exist that are worse than genocide, right? And people, when I say that, they're like shocked, like, wait, genocide is the crime of all crimes, right? But just because
What?
something, the average version of it may be worse than whatever, but it doesn't mean that there are specific instances where the evilness exceeds the average case. And in this context, it would be all those bad things. It would be genocide. It would be wiping out all of Gaza. It would be all,
Dan
insert all
Saltman
the things.
is the
What's up,
money
Dono?
behind this operation.
Read the effort post, sad face emoji.
I will read it later. I promise you. I'm not going to do it on stream, but I will read it, and then I can
Read
message
what?
you about it. There's some long effort post about, fuck, what's the word? Oh, it's right here. Escaping the conceptual boondoggle. It's not that
Made
long,
this?
honestly.
Where is it at?
It's on your subreddit. I'll link it to you.
Or just link it in DGG or?
It just wouldn't be anti-Muslim bigotry.
But isn't this why we because then the next thing I would go to is like it matters why they believe that, surely. But in this hypothetical you've constructed, it is the case, and they know it's the case. They have no good reason to think otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's why.
Well, I mean,
But coming back to the epistemic thing, I don't think it's separate because like when if we're talking about why people have bigoted opinions or why people even just have wrong opinions. This came up when I was talking to Rob Noor, a good friend. We were talking about whether or not Trump is anti-democracy because in Rob Noor's world, Trump genuinely thinks he won in 2020. Therefore, he's not anti-democracy. He's just got at best he's got wrong opinions about an election. But he's in his heart of hearts.
I mean,
but then I would say,
yeah, like,
you know what I'd say?
let's imagine that
I'd
the
say,
elections were actually stolen.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah,
Would it be
yeah.
like a process argument of some kind?
Yeah, it would be. Has he pursued that opinion with
Yeah, but now
with regard
let's
to
say the
truth?
process is
Yeah.
rigged. Now let's say you have a genuine opinion that the process was rigged.
He has a genuine opinion that the process was rigged, but again, like, where's that genuine opinion come from? Like, that doesn't
Suppose
matter.
that no, but suppose it is, again, that's epistemics. But like, let's just assume, right, for the sake of simplifying what we mean here. Take like Maidan, right?
Hold on. It's not. Pisco's saying it's just epistemics. It's just epistemics. Does he not think that certain people are more likely to find certain opinions? This is a normativity. It can be a stand-in for the word like morality, kind of normativity, whether or not a thing ought to be a thing,
yeah.
right? Some people will argue that in some ways normativity precedes epistemology, such that like we can say epistemics or epistemology is like our theory of how do we find truth, but then some people would argue that, well, you have to have some set of values before you even begin to search for truth because you are making a choice. A normative decision precedes your choice to search for truth. Why search for truth? What kind of truth do you want to search for? So this idea of like, well, what if a person legitimately did believe a particular thing? Would that then make them this? But they assume that that everybody starts off as this blank slate, perfect epistemic machine searching for different truths, and that the bigot is just a person who has rejected a certain truth, and that a good person is a person who has accepted a certain truth. But what if it's the case that bigots and then good people will say, what if they just start off differently epistemically? A bigot that searches for things that comport with his view of the world, that black people are more athletic, that they do have the warrior gene, that they are more prone to crime, that African culture is lagging behind European culture, whatever. They can find all those things and justify whatever belief they have. But you wouldn't just say that, well, if they have the facts, then that's right. You would say, well, why are they looking for those particular facts? You can't just stop and say, well, that's an epistemic thing. Let's discard it. No, some people choose the truth they want to believe in because it is preceded by bigoted beliefs. Sorry.
Right? This is not hard for us to imagine if there's a government that like genuinely steals an election and there are no processes, right? Think about Maduro's elections in Venezuela, right? We would think very differently. Would we call people that are doing an uprising against Maduro anti-democracy? No, right?
No, but then when it
Would
comes to that's why when it comes to Trump, I would argue that if Trump is being told by, let's say, Bill Barr told Trump that actually, yeah, it was stolen, we're going to set this investigation off, then and Trump believes that and goes with that, I don't think that makes him anti-democracy. But Trump gets told by Bill Barr that he's, and then Trump just goes and hires a different lawyer, a private lawyer. Then I'm like, okay, but then yes, I think you are actually
necessary
yeah.
for the case. It's really necessary for the case against Trump in a lot of respects. Not all of the cases against Trump, but some of the major ones that he's lying, that he's not honest, that he knows he lost, and it's in the Jack Smith indictment that Trump knew he lost. That's an allegation in the pleading.
Okay, but yeah, I agree with that. But let's say he did all the same things, but he was actually just genuinely delusional enough to think that the truth is here. I just need to ask more people. Would you still not consider that to be like the process with how he is? But no, but I mean the process with how he has chosen to achieve the truth is clearly is reckless. Like it's not with regard to the truth. Like, so
yeah, see, like that. Loner Box is getting there. He's using different words, but yeah. So Loner Box is saying, well, hold on. It's not just about the truth they believe. It's how did they choose the process by which they went to seek their truth. Yeah, you would criticize that process. Yeah.
I'd say he's there are some legal concepts for this, like willful blindness, right?
Yeah.
Like someone gives you a bag and you're like, I don't see what's in the bag. I just whatever. I took the bag. Where your conduct is so insane and so wild or whatever that you'll have this kind of like constructive intent or constructive knowledge of whatever's happening there. But usually in those situations, it's sufficiently clear. Like willful blindness is basically like I can't see you, I can hear you, I can see you, I can hear. It's that kind of shit. In terms of like where we would have like constructive intent or something. But if Donald Trump were just Don Quixote and he were all like genuine about it, we'd have a lot of bad things to say about his conduct. We'd have a lot of horrible things. We'd certainly call him still insurrectionist. He would still by definition meet that label. Nothing. There's no like good faith exception to insurrection or whatever. But we might not be able to justifiably say he's anti-democracy, right? Now, what happens to be the case that I think Trump is a liar. I think Trump is lying. I think Trump is, misinforming himself in a willful blind fashion to the extent that he believes any of this stuff. And so, thankfully, in the Trump case, Rob is just like wrong on the facts. But in terms of the concept, I think you have to give ground there.
Well, I only give ground insofar as I don't even consider it giving ground. I'm only agreeing insofar as
we're agreeing in like an insane hypothetical, I guess, like sense.
As like the process with how he achieves the information he believes to correct is is like the relevant point there. Actually, maybe even more so than how objectively correct it just is, because you can be informed by all the best authorities in the world of a fact that isn't true, but that's still like that's going to say something about like how sincerely you've like pursued that opinion or how honestly you've pursued that opinion.
Take RFK Jr. Right? Do you think RFK Jr. sincerely believes that vaccines cause autism?
I have no idea. I don't know enough about his.
Hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. Yeah,
he actually might though.
He doesn't.
You don't think so?
No. I know why you might think that because of the way that he speaks and everything, but like I'm pretty sure he has been like he's had a lot of financial incentive in the past to be on the sides of like certain things because he's like presented himself in court cases as I don't know if as like an expert witness or a consultant. Like I don't think he believes. I don't think he believes it.
He
is a really
measles
wacky
vaccine as well.
Wild guy, but
be some normative justification for applying this willful blindness concept or really attacking people who, given a level of recklessness, we believe should know better. Okay, and I might even give ground on that, right, and be like, I don't really give a fuck whether RFK Jr. believes or not. I'm going to assume. I mean, like all the time people are trying to debunk him. I think he just had like a CNN thing, and he just does like not even engage in any honest or good way or whatever. But I'm just going to, if I'm given a hypothetical where I know what his state of mind is, I'm just going to bite the bullet and answer the question. It could be the case that RFK is not knowingly imperiling the lives of kids or knowingly imperiling the health of the country. He's just a delusional person.
Okay.
It just depends on what I think is true. And sure, of course, we always infer intent. And so the question was asked to me, and people are using it as like an own.
It's just. Then can you say like Israel's not knowingly committing a genocide then? Because like that's not like their intent. Can he argue around that?
Or dunk is
maybe, but he might make the statements of people as an example. The weirdo Ben-Gvir and
sorry, I'm whispering. I can't believe Pisco said that like Holocaust denialism is not necessarily anti-Semitic. Well, that's just a true statement by definition. But of course, I would say that anyone who denies the Holocaust, I'm going to presume that they're anti-Semitic. Right?
Yeah.
There's just so much evidence. It's such a good predictor of anti-Semitism that Bob's your uncle. I think that's a pretty nice heuristic. But if someone were to push me and ask me, as a matter of definition, whether or not it entails anti-Semitism, the answer is just clearly no.
Yeah, but I think that's probably because when people hear you say not necessarily, some people are probably just going to assume that you're not. They're going to assume you're saying something other than, well, there could be some imaginable feasible edge case of like 0.1% of the time where someone does this.
I know that people could get that impression, but it's very.
I would say like it probably does entail anti-Semitism, but that person might not knowingly, intentionally trying to be anti-Semitic. I don't know. We're so in the fucking weeds here.
Clear because when you hear me say it, I say I would presume anyone who did it would be anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
so
I know.
I'm actually, I think there's like a great deal of bad faith going on in terms of that position there. But I'm intellectually honest about it. I'm just going to tell you the truth, right? And that is the truth in my mind.
Why did that question about the Holocaust come up with Conduit?
I have no fuck.
Was it because of Crystal and Kyle platforming the? Oh, it was the guy, the fucking Chinese dude who denies the Holocaust.
Yeah, Professor Yang or whatever. Yeah. But like yeah, so there's a, I think there's like a desire to say that Crystal and Kyle are anti-Semitic. I just don't think that there's good evidence for that. I think it's plausible that what they do increases anti-Semitism. I think that's possible, though I don't have specific empirical proof of that. But I basically think that that's true of like even unbiased, unskewed coverage of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Unfortunately, I wish it were otherwise, right?
That brings me to a question I think is quite interesting. So for the purpose of argument, like if a political commentator does Holocaust denial, we're like 99.9% of the time going to say that they're
I'm assuming
right?
that, I'm banning them from my chat, and I'm saying that they're almost certainly anti-Semitic. Yeah.
What if they support anti-Semitic movements?
Depends, right? How about the Azov Battalion, right? Depends in what sense they're supporting them, right?
Well, if they celebrate them and they glorify them and they say
What
that they're
a
brilliant and they're the ones who are they're the heroes of this
Christ.
conflict. I don't know how many people say that about the Azov Battalion specifically.
What is the Azov Battalion?
It's like this small part of the Ukrainian military that's probably Nazi adjacent, to be honest. But it's like, oh, so now we can't support Ukraine.
They were like 6,000 large at the height of their how large that little battalion was. But basically,
they're probably all dead now.
Well, I don't know about that, but they were from there was like after the overtake of Crimea when Russia invaded and took the entire that little island peninsula thing in 2014. Russia also began to pump in people and arms and weapons and everything into the two little Donetsk and Luhansk regions, collectively called the Donbass in southeast Ukraine. And there were some battalions that were fighting constantly over the past, for a decade before the invasion. And one of those battalions was the Azov Battalion. One of the quote unquote problematic things about the Azov Battalion, or some battalions in Ukraine, is that some of them will use Nazi iconography, or sometimes they will, they see as heroes, like Bandera is a common example, somebody who openly kind of collaborated with the Nazis during World War II or during that time period. The problem, though, the more complicated thing is, in America, we tend to label the Nazis as the bad guys, and then our side as the good guys in World War II. So we label the Soviets as being on our team. They're like the good guys. But the reality is especially if you were in Eastern Europe, that was not the view that you had, because the Soviets came to your shit up as well. And if you had to choose between the Nazis and the Soviets, the answer wasn't always obvious, right? Obviously, there are examples of like Poland being split in half between the Soviets and the Germans. You had I always forget this. It's like the Katyn massacre or whatever in Poland, and I'm sure there's a ton of other examples where there will be I think people tried to flee into I think they tried to flee into the Soviet Union. I think they tried to flee east during World War II from Poland, and I think all of them were caught, and then they were just turned around and they were just murdered. So if you were in Eastern Europe, it was legitimately you were caught between a rock and a hard place, and you would align with whoever the fuck you could to fight off whoever the fuck you could. But so that kind of tradition carries forward, and then people are very eager to criticize the entirety of Ukraine, despite them having a Jewish president and everything, as anti-Semitic or Nazis or whatever. But it's just because they wanted to not support them, basically.
Got it.
If someone said that about the Azov specifically, I'd probably think they maybe are kind of a bit Nazi. Depending on which Azov, because they changed a lot.
If, for example, they gave medals and awarded commendations to members of the Azov Battalion as heroes.
Well, it depends on which point of the Azov Battalion you're talking about, right?
Or let's assume it's the portion that has plenty of whatever white nationalist sentiment, or certainly a lot of anti-Russian sentiment, but anti-Semitic sentiment as well. Suppose, and there was a political commentator who singled out the Azov Battalion as the heroes of the Ukraine war, the white nationalist ones. They're resisting against the Russian oppressors. They're doing good work, and they should be supported.
And they're saying this specifically about the Azov Battalion that is actually the predominantly white nationalist part of them.
Wait, and then also hold on, I'm just real quick, because Loner Box is biting bullets here. I think you might not need to. It's not like the Azov Battalion. Your battalions, okay, are, for better or for worse, these are your strongest fighting people, because they are the ones who have been fighting this. They call it a civil war, but it's not correct to call it a civil war, because it really is a Russian propagated war in the Donbass. They're your hardest fighters for a long time. They've been involved in active combat for a decade before the actual formal invasion. So if you're giving them an award or an accommodation, you're not rewarding them because you're oh, good job, you guys were the best Nazis. They're awarding them because they're some of the strongest and most loyal fighters in Ukraine who have been fighting for a long time. So it doesn't matter if you reward them or award them or whatever the fuck else, even if they're the Azov Battalion. You're not awarding them because they're killing Jews. You're awarding them because they're fighting to protect your country from invading Russians. So you don't have to bite the bullet on saying well, maybe it would be anti-Semitic to give props to the Azov people. No, that's.
Yeah, I'd probably be a bit suspect of that person who
support the Azov Battalion. I mean, I think it really is going to depend on what we think the purpose is of that.
I'm sorry.
What?
Can I say what happened there, Dan, or no?
You can
On
screenshot
stream?
it. And send
Okay,
it.
not
No.
tell him. Okay, or so I'll tell him. Yeah, I'll forward it.
Not tell me?
No,
Oh,
no,
secret.
no, I
Okay.
can tell you.
No, 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 no.
I
No,
can't
that's
tell
good.
chat.
No, you get to know.
This is what I send, and that, and the thing I forward you is what I got back.
Support. Why they're supporting them? Are they supporting them right? Because if they're supporting Azov as a proxy, like they could be supporting all the other contingents of the Ukrainian army. They're just like seemingly whistleblowing that they're calling out this kind of like smaller portion of the unit or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's going to bear on their intent. But now suppose the entire
Oh,
Ukrainian
well.
military was under the banner of Azov Battalion. But they're still Russian fascists who are invading their lands, right? You agree with that?
Yeah.
That wouldn't change your support for Ukraine, would it? Let's be honest. Loaderbox. If the entire military was Azov in Ukraine, you'd still support Ukraine, correct?
Yeah, insofar as driving out the Russians, yeah.
But
I
I
don't think I
does
would-
that, and that hypothetical would be anti-Semitic on that view if what they're doing is supporting the sovereignty of Ukraine in spite of the anti-Semitic beliefs of the Azov military in this hypothetical.
Yeah, but I don't think I would be. I'd probably be a bit less glazing than I am of Ukraine right now. Yeah.
Maybe so, yes,
Which,
for sure.
to be
but
clear,
I
Kyle
think
Klinsky is not of the Houthis. He glazes the shit out of them, and he thinks that they're the only ones who respect international law and all that shit. Right? So
no,
he's
what I'm trying to say is not that it's good to support the Houthis and fuck Hamas and fuck Hezbollah and Iran, okay? But I don't support the war in Iran, and I don't support Israel's like there are positions that you can take, and there is an non-anti-Semitic version of support for these groups, and that might be uncomfortable to hear, but it's true. Agreed?
I'm not sure for a few reasons. One, when you get to a point where you're like, so I'm thinking of Klinsky in particular.
No,
I don't know about Crystal Ball.
no.
Or-
So, yeah, we can get into specific cases.
Oh,
but
you're
assume
talking about
nothing
is it
else.
physically possible? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Like,
Okay.
Can it
So now
exist in the
let's get into
universe? Yeah.
specific cases.
Specific cases
Yes.
of someone like Kyle, who is, as far as from what I've seen, is very almost like fawning over the Houthis and saying like they're literally like the only people in the region with any kind of like moral code or understanding or care for international law. Then I'm just thinking like, okay, if I can't call this person anti-Semitic for saying that, do I just say what they're okay with anti-Semitism? They're praising anti-Semitic groups.
Are they praising anti-Semitic?
Well,
what are they praising?
like which action you mean, like the Red Sea attacks?
Yeah. So if you're praising a particular attack, are you doing so on the basis of they're attacking Jews, or are you doing it on the basis of they're attacking Israel?
Doesn't it, okay? So let's roll it back then. What if there is a situation where your praise for them, where your tolerance of different levels of anti-Semitism changes based on what they're on what those actions are, right? So as far as I know with Kyle, he was one of the ones who was pushing the kind of like Mearsheimer-esque story about Ukraine. And maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't think it would be that hard to find him saying something about the Azov battalion and how there's a problem with like arming Ukraine because of these Nazis not, in the battalion, all that shit.
The double standard argument, right?
Yeah, and it's like, so it's interesting that like we're going to support the anti-Semites as long as they're fighting with the country that happens to be Jewish. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so that I think is where it's productive to go down that line, right? I think it's productive to go down the line of the different standard conversation and then to explore, well, why are you treating the existence of anti-Semitic views in a small percentage of military resistance to Russia as justifying sort of lack of support? But in the context of Hamas, when you have broader sets of anti-Semitic dispositions, you're not treating it as sort of a bar to support, material support, and favorable coverage. That's a complicated question, and I'm sorry. Anyone who says that it's not is lying. Like,
no, I agree. It's a complicated question.
There could be a great deal of responses that one could have that don't commit you to anti-Semitism, and you can say it's sus. And I've said things that are sus, like that's a sus standard. That's really sus. But I'm not willing to go beyond that unless I can prove it. Everyone.
Real quick, be careful what communities you're in now, because I think sus means gay, depending on where you're at for Zoomers now. So careful.
Sus?
Yeah, you're like, oh, this guy's kind of sus.
I thought it was
I
just
mean, like,
suspicious.
yeah, they're suspicious of being gay. Saying, be careful.
Can you do me a favor, Steve? Can you open up that thing I sent you and tell me which ones you think would be good for this type of tweet?
I'm trying to do work.
I
here.
know, man, but this would be good for me.
Hold on.
Do
Sorry,
you
I don't hear,
yeah, that's okay. So do you believe in the concept of, I don't even know what you would call it, but like anti-Semitism in practice, or like functional anti-Semitism, I guess you could call it, like the idea that you might not hold any of the underlying hatreds for a particular group, but you can just have an ideology that kind of like is a little bit next door to it that leads you to push all of these things that have very anti-Semitic outcomes, or to prop up anti-Semitic groups and all that kind of stuff.
You're asking if I
But
believe in the concept? Like I don't know if I believe that concepts can exist. If you're asking whether or not I understand it, that's something different.
Or like, would you be okay with someone being called that? Like, if someone doesn't hold an anti-Semitic bone in their body, like in their in terms of internal bias or bigotry, but they are functionally.
My bias is towards no, because Destiny called me a functional anti-Semite, and I didn't like it. I thought it was stupid.
Well, but that's
I agree with Pisco here, actually. I think that using the term functional anti-Semite, I would just call Pisco anti-Semitic. I think you would just say that. Functional anti-Semite is dumb. Because it's like functional bigot. You should call him anti-Semitic. Yeah, and he absolutely is.
So you think Pisco's anti-Semitic?
100%, yeah. He might be too stupid to understand how or whatever, or doesn't realize it. Maybe in some years he will. Maybe if like Jews become more lefty, he'll suddenly change everything, but 100%, yeah.
it seems like we're trying to invoke the baggage of anti-Semitism for actions that could be incredibly benign, like fair coverage of Israel.
Well, I would like to think that if someone does fair coverage of Israel, then they wouldn't get called a functional anti-Semite.
Even if they cause a rapid increase in anti-Semitism?
Yeah, because if it's fair coverage, then you're telling the truth. Like, you're not, as in, like, it's,
when
why would
when
anyone...
am I ever lying, right? So, well, maybe that's about me again, but like, you're saying someone who's
You
deceptive
should,
and causing
like, on this is a thing where you're torturing the ontology of a thing as well. Like, so this is like asking, like, do you drink water when you're thirsty? And you're like, yes. And it's like, oh, so you think drinking water is good when you're thirsty? And it's like, yes. Well, hypothetically, let's say that you drank water that didn't quench your thirst. It's like, okay, well, then I wouldn't. So then that means that water doesn't necessarily, well, hold on. An intrinsic property of water is that it quenches your thirst. So when you ask me if I drink water that doesn't alleviate my thirst, would I still drink water? And then I say, no, that's not really saying anything about the concept of water. I don't believe, maybe on the very fringes, I don't believe that fair coverage of Israel would make people anti-Semitic. So I don't think you should bite the bullet on that. Like, well, what if you cover Israel fairly and it leads to anti-Semitism? No. I think there are plenty of ways you could be insanely critical of Israel and the way that the government conducts itself. And you can maybe even speak to the Israeli population at large for the support that they've given for the Netanyahu administration, that none of these things would necessarily increase anti-Semitism. But when you combine coverage of Israel with zog, 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 APAC, 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 24/7, and that's your biggest talking point, and every single election all across the entire United States, to try to pretend like, oh, well, this is just fair coverage of Israel. Coverage of a certain magnitude is absolutely a type of coverage. And it's not just about the fact. Look at all the black fatigue on X. Those are real stories of black people committing crimes. Would you say that people aren't racist because they're just reporting simply the facts? Like, it's childlike understandings of everything.
Anti-Semitism.
Even if you're saying, well, even if you're saying something that's actually, I would go further. If you're saying something that's not true, but there are so many authorities that say it is true, I don't even know if that would necessarily make you a functionally anti-Semitic, like that person. I would put the blame elsewhere.
Slow down. Okay. So, what is functional anti-Semitism?
Do you want to give you? I'm just better at defining things by examples, but I guess we can. Okay, I think let's say it would be like if you have an ideological or like say some kind of disposition that your behavior involves a kind of like reckless propagation of. Like a reckless propagation of anti-Semitic like outcomes or support of anti-Semitic groups or like an instinct for drawing anti-Semitic tropes, like that kind of thing. That would be like functional anti-Semitism, I think.
Oof.
Can I give you an example, or would that help?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. What did Kalinske do recently? Oh, he tried to, you know, the thing with Morocco and the migrants crossing the.
I'm hearing that Morocco is like expanded into the Sahara. I don't know much else.
Oh no, the 50,000 migrants in the Spanish part. You hear about that?
Oh, I don't know anything about
okay.
it. No, totally agree.
Right. So just recently, Spain has a little territory on the tip of North Africa, like at the edge of Morocco, called Ceuta. The Moroccan police basically a few days ago stood down from the border, and about 50,000 Moroccans crossed, and like 60 of them died swimming over to this little Spanish enclave. And then the Spanish had a crisis, and then they got sent back. It was a pretty fucking event. We know almost 100% sure that the Moroccan police okayed this. We also know that the Moroccan monarchy has done this in the past because. Because like it's usually like a diplomatic move. Like the monarchy gets upset because Spain is doing something that might affirm Western Sahara's independence, or they were negotiating with Algeria in a way that Moroccans didn't like. So we know all that. These are the facts. Kalinske goes on.
I know where you're going, right?
And says
like
that
Israel and America.
Israel and America told Morocco to do this to get back. Yeah, no evidence to get back at Spain for supporting
Palestine. What I would say.
Palestine.
I wouldn't call him functional anti-Semitic. I would say he's susceptible to anti-Semitic stories, or susceptible to anti-Semitic propaganda, or he's susceptible to conspiracy theories. But I don't know why we need to use this term functional anti-Semitism. It sounds like it's a very different thing. Right?
Is that an invented term? I feel like I've heard that for. Okay. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. It could have a robust history. I don't know why we need to use this term, because it just really does seem to carry the baggage. Like, I just wouldn't call that action anti-Semitic. I would say if this is all true as you're laying out, and I have reason to believe it's true, because it's not the first time I'm hearing it. It just sounds like he is a mark for some of these stories. I also saw that he like retweeted Russia Today at a different part. Like, again, this all just sounds like consistent with someone who is susceptible to that kind of stuff, but I don't think it's inherently anti-Semitic. No.
So he's susceptible to anti-Semitism, or to like an anti-Semitic type story,
conspiracies or something, right? Like wherever it originated from.
But propagating it is not anti-Semitic to you.
Not inherently by definition. I think you would agree with that. Yes or no?
Yes or no? Do you think those four are anti-Semitic?
Depends on whether or not we're talking about
like I'm about to send you some. These are, I guess, but like he always says like Zionist instead, so it's kind of hard to like he's just gonna say these are all Zionists. But wait, real quick, is Ethan does he have Israeli citizenship?
I don't know. Everybody's saying yeah.
Okay, people are saying yes. Okay. Sometimes I see people call Ethan Israeli, and I don't know if that's like, is he?
Yeah, I think the four ones that I picked out don't have Zionist. One of them says Israeli. Yeah, it was that one. The rat one, I was thinking about that. The Shalom one for sure.
Okay, those are the ones that I like through.
Israelis are filthy. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? All right, that's my last one. I'll add that.
I'm back.
Oh, I can only add 4. All right, fuck it.
No, man. Wait,
Make
wait.
it
At most, it would be functional
multiple
anti-Semitism,
posts,
right? But
yeah,
inherently,
it's not a sign that he
right?
himself like actually hates Jews. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I think we're agreed on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but well, first of all, I don't think that concept of like, well, what I'm calling like anti-Semitism in practice or anti-Semitic acts or whatever, like I don't think that's necessarily that different to concepts we use all the time, don't we? Don't we? Again, maybe I'm retarded on American history or that, but I thought when people say systemic racism,
Structural racism.
I thought people were saying that you can actually have that happen even when no one's actually being consciously racist or willingly racist on anything, right? You can just say let's just over police the crime neighborhoods and they just happen to be black.
I'm very careful with those terms, right? Like I'm happy to say that the legacy of racism has introduces structural biases that persist into the day, and that's a cause for us to take some sort of remedial action.
I feel like in the case of both Tommy Robinson
I
and
don't think you
Sam
would
Piker,
say
they view the
of people
people that they like as one of
merely
the good
propagate
ones.
the structural
It
racism
feels like
that
they are
functionally
removing the
racist.
ethnic
Would you, yes or
identity
no?
from their covers.
That depends. Not necessarily, but I would say
I wouldn't do that. Would you? So imagine that you're talking to like a clerk
the
at some
cop or-
bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And they're propagating this system that we just agree is rooted in some sort of historic racism that carries forward some disparate impact today. Would you say, oh, you bureaucrat, you're structurally racist? Maybe you would as like an academic matter. I wouldn't do that. I would say that you are part of a system that's perhaps structurally racist, or you're contributing to a system of anti-Semitic, structural anti-Semitism.
Oh, Moot, by the way,
I would be very careful.
I pushed my stand-ups back by an hour.
Good.
Just for you.
That's WCAT. That's good business for me, Dan.
I know.
Thank you.
Full about describing that just because I'm aware of the.
I used to have
Stand-ups
them at noon because we had people all over the world, but now I demanded they start at 1 instead.
Oh, I
'cause
feel
he's
like
the
there are
boss.
3 big time zones. You have to choose 2. It's like you've got Europe, America, and like Japan, or like Australia, and you have to choose 2. I feel like trying to coordinate between all 3 is a fucking nightmare. The
And we
Australian people,
we have
Japanese-
Australians. They fuck everything.
No, f them. Yeah, Australia, Japanese, Korean, or New Zealand. Those people, you just have to get used to functioning at weird times. They don't even have real internet over there anyway. So
baggage that
I understand.
connotation of
Yeah,
saying someone, right?
I understand.
I mean,
So
hell, they called me functional anti-Semitism. I'm like, what the fuck?
I have no idea why anyone would say that about you, but that's not cool. Anyway, okay.
I mean,
we're
after
close to
this
something.
conversation, Loner, really? You have no idea? Really, Loner Bugs? Okay, buddy. Okay, Chief. Okay, there.
Yeah, anybody who's sitting here having a 2-hour-long argument about like what is exactly anti-Semitic, I'll say that that's sus.
What did he say yesterday where he was like, just because you're a Holocaust revisionist doesn't necessarily make you anti-Semitic. It's like, we're on academic levels of bigotry understanding that are previously thought impossible to attain. Like, Jesus.
Wait, where was the Liberal Action Network there, right? I feel like
I'm only just hearing about this. What are you talking about?
And I'm not sure where my liberal NATO was. I guess I'm not included there. I haven't signed on to Article 5.
Absolutely would
Listen,
not be. Holy shit. Pisco would never be included in any kind of fucking liberal NATO. This guy gives more cover to fucking tankies and whatever than he's like the perfect ally for them. Like just enough distance to always have plausible deniability, but the ultimate perfect coverage and cover for everything constantly.
Probably more Switzerland than anyone else in this fucking space right now. So, but I've got you. I've got your back. I would never call you a functional anti-Semite based on what I've seen.
Appreciate
Okay, you were quite close to something there with the let's say the clerk who's even the person who devises the policy, right? Because they're like, well, even though what they're doing is having racist outcomes, that's not enough to say that they're racist in their head, right? That they are racist.
Yeah, I think we agree on that.
Let's say that they did it, that they did this policy, but they had no good reason to believe that there was more crime in the black communities. They just saw loads of TikToks, you know.
Right. So they are just like willfully blind to a reality, right?
I don't know how willful it is, but like maybe they like TikTok. they just feel they're just emotionally triggered by it.
Unfortunately, right? If we're defining anti-Semitism with respect to states of mind, and the only thing you have on this person is a reckless disregard for the truth, I don't think you can yet say that they themselves that harbor that prejudice, right? They either harbor that prejudice or they don't, right? There can be clear cases and unclear cases. In the case of someone who has a reckless thought process, maybe we're more apt to infer that prejudice existing or not existing, right? But if we truly isolate and say that prejudice does not exist, by definition, they're not anti-Semitic.
Well, so I would
how we define the term.
Yeah, but I would probably go another step there with the person who's being recklessly disregarding the truth and is enacting racist policy because of it.
It'd be hilarious. Ask Pisco, is it possible that Hitler wasn't an anti-Semite?
I mean,
he would have to say yes. It would be possible, right?
He would have to say yes. He would have to say yes to that.
I got it.
No, he would be like, well, the other factors make me consider that he is. So you would have to be like, if you take out, some of the other things he said, just off of this, would you allow it? So but he's weaselly. Yeah.
I might not say you are a racist, but I might say you're being racist.
Your policy discriminates. Yeah, so here's where Conduit had a good point and where I have to get Brown. It's when he says the example of the store owner, right? The store owner doesn't harbor racist beliefs, but he
I
does
can't
say
believe
blacks need not
Pisco bit the
apply
bullet
for some
on this
economic
one.
reason, right?
Yeah.
Even though
Oh,
he
wait, on
genuinely
this?
likes black people, but there's just some overriding
Pisco
economic
bit the bullet when he was talking to Conduit, saying that like, because Conduit was like, what if a store owner puts up a sign saying no blacks allowed just because he thinks blacks tend to be thieves? And Pisco was like, well, yeah, that wouldn't necessarily be racist.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I'm like,
how did
oh
he
my
bite
God.
that? That's
I know.
absolutely
It's just-
racism.
Yeah, because he's like, well, because he was like, well, because maybe they think that I don't want to misquote him, but it was this. He's like, I don't. He's like, maybe they don't think that anything bigoted about blacks, but they genuinely believe that like blacks are just less economically prosperous or whatever. And it was like, okay, dude.
God.
Thing there. There we would say, I think, because the action actually does discriminate on the basis of race, I think we'd say the action, I guess, is racist, but we wouldn't say, and I think you would agree, he is not
That
racist.
the
I
store-
think you have to agree with me.
Well, I mean, you
Like-
probably use a heuristic and think they are, but to be like 100%, yeah, I wouldn't say they're
If we
100%.
knew,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
If we
yeah.
knew.
Would you have any issue with saying they're being
racist?
racist by doing that?
It's just like you can't be 100% about anything. I like that's the
Yeah,
whole argument here.
At this level of sociological understanding, nobody can ever truly be called racist or anything like that. Like,
Can
we're
Pisco,
on-
but like, is he 100% that Santa doesn't exist?
or
How could he
anything,
ever
yeah.
be? How?
I guess I wouldn't have a problem if what you mean by being racist is taking a racist action.
Yeah, you're doing
I think
racism,
I
yeah.
would say, yeah, if all you mean by being racist is taking a racist action.
Are you? No, I'm agnostic to
Right.
Santa. I've said
Because
this.
he lacks the prejudice.
I feel like the moment when Socrates, gets up and gets really excited and everyone's eureka. So, I think the Kyle Kalinskis of the world, I think are okay.
My bad. It's right because that was a really good point you just made. I think we have plenty of examples of this, and I want you to finish what you said. Where like some guy will make a racist joke, and you would say like you're being really racist right now, right, or something. But you don't mean that they harbor a prejudice. Let's say you actually believe it. You're just saying that their action is wrongfully discriminated on the basis of race, and that the action is this, and that person is doing it, but you don't harbor that belief that they are racist because you think that they lack that prejudice. Now, someone hearing that might say, "Holy shit, that guy at the party was like really racist."
Oh my God,
'cause he
dude.
said this joke.
But
It's
like,
evidence,
I feel
but-
so bad for like Nazis, like Nick Fuentes and stuff. Like, they're so sad that they can never be this openly anti-Semitic. Like, these are crazy tweets, bro.
Which ones? The
I like one
ones?
in chat.
Oh, you
I
like
one in
oh,
chat.
yeah. Oh God, there's a new Hassan tweet. Great. Interesting how everyone who says this in DC has a photo like this. Jesus Christ. Actually getting Hassan Packer out of that Dual El Sayed campaign will help him win more than anything. Oh my God,
like,
he just hates
How
him.
many photos of there exist with Hassan with like very, very not good people? You know what I mean? Like, let's that could very easily be turned on him the same way. But of course it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Attacking only.
If you knew that person very well, he actually doesn't mean anything by it. I think you would say he did something racist. He is not racist. Agreed?
So whether I'd use this language in like day-to-day life, I think it would depend on like how far they're going with it. Because I think, let's say there's the person who refuses service to black people because they just think the whites will give them more money or whatever in the shop.
tips or something,
Okay,
yeah.
and like it's to the point, but black people just really want to come to the shop, and he needs to get them out. So he puts up a big sign saying blacks don't come here. And then when he goes outside, he's also
that's all epistemic, right?
poor
You
guys.
understand what
Yeah,
you're
I know.
doing?
And the poor guy's also
So-
read too much bad press about black crime, so he's always crossing the road. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
if this behavior like compounds and compounds and compounds, my objections to people calling him racist is just going to reduce and reduce and reduce. Which brings me back. Sorry, just the thing I was getting to with how you can tell someone that they might not be racist, but they're being a racist. They're doing racism. I think what we see right now is this phenomenon, and maybe I don't even know if you agree with it or not, but I think there's this phenomenon of lots of people, almost all of whom don't seem to have any like what we would understand to be like anti-Semitic biases or hatred in their minds, right? But they are doing a lot of anti-Semitism, or they're being anti-Semitic, like when they do when they propagate anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
Yeah. I want examples of that. So I don't think that merely being a useful idiot and spreading propaganda that originates from anti-Semitic sources or something like that, where you can really, and again, they're going to have the same issue of like anti-Israel, anti-Semitic sources. And like, I think you'd have to agree that even though there's a huge correlation, that something being an anti-Israeli conspiracy theory doesn't necessarily mean that it's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
No,
You
so-
would agree with that, even though they're highly
He
correlated.
just
Yeah,
you
so
can
for
never
example,
know
if you
anything. That's
believe-
the entire argument.
Correct.
It is
Especially
based.
because I don't know if he's aware of it or not, but he is making exactly the Alito argument for the Voting Rights Act. The way that Alito got around the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, is by saying, okay, there might be some racist gerrymanders, fine, but you have to show me that they were racially motivated and not politically motivated in order for that charge to stand. But the reality is every single gerrymander you do is politically motivated because you want to gain more seats, and you might be able to do that by excluding a certain race. But you're always just going to say they're politically motivated, right? Well, today, if you wanted to be anti-Semitic, why the fuck would you ever talk about the Jews when you can just say the Israelis or the government or Zionists? Like, you can just use that, and it's like a perfect stand-in. You never have to say. You'd be an idiot to say that you hate Jews today. Just say you hate Israelis, you hate Zionists, and you have not only do you have all the same tropes as Nazis did, now you have even more tropes that you can use. You can post the weird pictures of the settler people over and over again and laugh about how they're inbred, and all Israelis are inbred, and make up all the crazy things about Israel controlling the government. And now it's like way more like passable. It's dumb.
I just don't believe that he believes this, because I guarantee if I go on Twitter and I spend the next 6 months on Hong, but I just say, oh, well, I'm just doing all of this to help her campaign and get her to be better, he can't technically prove that I have any like ulterior motive. So then he can't say that I'm anti-Hong.
Sure.
There is no way he believes this. This is
Like,
Yeah, he's stretching his own
All right,
vision.
I got my
yeah.
stand up. Have fun.
yeah. Have a good one, Dan.
Have 'em.
if you believe something
Do you
like
wanna know-
70% of the
Do you want to know why Hong, I guess, is where she's at or whatever? How she made it so far into the whatever?
How?
Okay, give me 2 minutes, okay? Hi, Destiny. A few days during the stream, you had some. This is insane. Okay, just Jesus. A few days during your stream, you had some questions about how someone as unserious as Hong ended up becoming the favorite in the Wisconsin Democratic gubernatorial primary. Here's a write-up about the sequence of events that led Wisconsin Dems to where they are now. 1. In early July, it looked like Sarah Rodriguez, the current lieutenant governor, was going to be the moderate candidate that the establishment would consolidate behind in order to block Hong. On July 8th, Milwaukee County Executive David Crawley dropped out of the race and endorsed Rodriguez. Crawley will become relevant again later. 2. On July 12th, Rodriguez fired her campaign manager for inaccurate and incomplete campaign finance reports. It turned out that due to a double counting error, her campaign's financial position was greatly overestimated. She ended up dropping out of the race less than a week later on July 17th with less than $35,000 cash on hand and $150,000 in debt. At this point, the candidates remaining were State Senator Francesca Hong, former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, former Department of Administration Secretary Joel Brennan, and State Senator Kelda Roys. Brennan and Roys...
Sorry.
Jesus. Okay. Brennan and Roys never really gained any steam, so the only real contenders were Barnes and Hong. Barnes has high name recognition statewide due to being the former lieutenant governor and also running a failed bid for the U.S. Senate in 2022. However, the establishment refused to consolidate behind him for reasons that will come up later. On July 18th, the day after Rodriguez dropped out, Crawley unsuspended his campaign and got back in the race with the backing of the current governor, Tony Evers. It became clear that he would now be the establishment candidate, and his campaign tried to lobby Barnes to drop out, but that proved to be a tough lift since Barnes consistently polled better than Crawley. Barnes and Crawley were very much eating into one another's support, and neither of them seemed keen on exiting the race, especially not Crawley since he had just gotten back in. Weeks later, on July 30th, Barnes finally dropped out. Shortly after he dropped out, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel published a story regarding concerns about Barnes' behavior towards women. Nothing illegal or non-consensual was alleged, just reports of the state party launching a probe into his behavior last year after they received an anonymous letter accusing him of using his office and power to gain access to women. While no specific wrongdoing was alleged, this would explain, fairly or not, why Evers and the Wisconsin Democratic establishment was averse to backing him and instead chose to put Crawley back in the race. Mandela Barnes, a quick rundown of who Barnes is will be important to understand why he chose to stay in as long as he did. Barnes served as lieutenant governor under Evers from 2019 to 2023. He chose not to run again for lieutenant governor in 2022 and decided instead to run for Senate against Republican incumbent Ron Johnson. While the polling was relatively tight, it consistently pointed to a single-digit victory for Johnson. 2022 was supposed to be a rough midterm environment for Dems. Johnson was a two-term incumbent, and Barnes was also seen too far left due to being on the defund the police train back in 2020. So the National Party and donors saw the race as a steep uphill climb and decided to deprioritize spending on it. Barnes ended up being significantly outspent and lost, but only by 1%. The Barnes campaign was frustrated with national Dems for not investing more in the race, and a strong argument could be made that such an investment might have flipped the seat. The only reason I bring this up is because, besides his polling advantage, Barnes' resentment towards the establishment, stemming from his feeling of being abandoned by them in 2022, might explain his refusal to step aside and get behind Crawley. He's similarly resentful that the establishment abandoned him, once again, by backing Crawley. And then, here we are today. There are 4 candidates left. Royce and Brennan still haven't dropped out, with only 2 serious contenders, Hong and Crawley, and less than a week until the August 11th primary. Hong is the favorite, but Crawley still has an outside shot if he can consolidate the anti-Hong vote. So it just seemed like a ton of like super cancerous internal politics and everything kind of.
We have to have something for the Dems to stop this. Like, but I don't even know how you do. I don't even. Is it possible?
Well, for Hong, I think that.
No. I'm just saying, like, is it possible, like, in the future, for us to stop running like 3 candidates against DSA members? Like, how do we stop that?
I wonder how. I think Dems just pushed against this though, but I was wondering, would ranked choice voting really be that bad of an idea? I don't know.
I think
Apparently
ranked
the
choice is good. It
Democratic
gets you the
establishment
most
doesn't like it.
middle candidate, which is good for politics.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
deaths in Gaza are women and children, right? This is something that's not true. It's been proven false by the UN for like 2 years. The health ministry doesn't say it anymore, but UN experts still say it. Human rights organizations, Oxfam said it just like last month in one of their reports. So,
Sure, you know more
but
than I
someone
do
who,
on
yeah,
this,
so someone who believes these things, I don't think they're
You
doing
going live?
anti-Semitism because like there's actually quite a
No,
lot
I
of
gotta
authority
play
behind it,
soon.
unfortunately. So like they're just believing something that's false that might, I don't know, maybe leads to some anti-Semitic outcome.
Bingo,
But
bingo,
yeah,
bingo. That's a great
okay.
example.
But let's say there's someone else who is presents themselves as an authority on the subject, and they're believing things like they believe that like there's an entire industry and like an industrial practice in Israeli prisons of them training dogs to rape prisoners, or the Israelis are vaporizing people with this technology that we've got no footage of, or that like the Houthis are the good guys and they're actually like the moral the moral clarity of the conflict.
Nicholas Kristof or something in the New York Times. There was an article about that.
Yeah.
New York Times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you start to get or like Israel is the reason that Morocco opened their border and 50,000 people crossed into Spain. Like when you start to get into this level of conspiracism and this level of like absurdity, then I would start to think that there's enough of a reckless.
It is anti-Semitic.
But the entire balance of Congress, the majority in Congress, and thus the future of the republic is going to be decided by less than 20 seats.
And that's
Now,
because of a lot of redistricting work that's been done by
and,
both
and
parties.
in
yeah.
redistricting, my party will gain between 7 and 10 seats. That's a big factor in this as well. But of the seats that are at issue that everybody agrees, I mean, most of the seats are already decided. This is a small number. We, of course, know what those seats are. We've been working on this for 1.5 years. I've broken every fundraising record there ever is, not because I'm the greatest fundraiser in the world, but because people know the stakes are so high. And so we'll have the resources to have great candidates competing. We have better candidates than they do. And think of this. In 2018, the last midterm of a Trump term, that was his first term, we lost the majority, as we all know. Think of it, the entire balance of Congress.
Oh, please God.
Disregard there that what they're doing is anti-Semitic.
Why though? If it's explained better by fervent anti-Zionism, why would you assume one and not the other?
Because we're talking about doing here, not what they believe, right?
Yeah. So what they're doing, is it discriminated on the basis of Judaism?
Or
Right? In the
Jewishness.
shop owner case, you're saying Jews need not apply. What is it about the act itself is discriminatory? I
Because
don't see that here.
because we get to a point where I just wonder like how far and how disproportionate does someone have to be about the one country that just happens to be Jewish before we overlap it with anti-Semitism.
Yeah, that's about like intentionality and circumstantial evidence and epistemics. Right? Then
Okay.
you're saying like, well, the concentration is leading me to have this belief about his state of mind, right?
No, but we're talking about the actions. I was talking about the actions. Whether they're doing
Right,
the
so-
anti-Semitism by propagating it.
Yeah, but like propagating a false story isn't discriminating on the basis of Judaism. The way that like saying Jews need not apply is. What's the discrimination on the basis of Judaism for spreading a false story? It's not an inherently discriminatory act.
It's if the majority of their of the absurd claims and the falsehood seem to disproportionately impact like the country where the one country that's
That
Jewish
would,
is
that would
one
affect our
as well.
intuitions about what their intention is, right? If there's this disproportionate thing of non-discrimination, but it always seems to go in a certain direction, I would say it's not inherently discriminatory, but it speaks to.
Well, they can be doing, but yeah,
knowledge,
well,
state of
not,
mind.
yeah, but I'm not talking about state of mind here because, like you said, with the person who is has like take.
Are we looping?
Yeah, I don't know. I can only watch Pisco Campos for so long because
I've
they're
already
sort of-
we've thoroughly debunked this. I don't think Pisco would think that Hitler was anti-Semitic because he can't know for sure.
not necessarily. Yeah, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
he can't know for sure. It's almost over. Oh, is it really? Because I'll finish it, but oh my God. All right, I lost my timestamp now. Fuck that.
When
All
you-
right, that's it for me.